Thank you very much. Welcome back. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch. I hope you're all fortified for an afternoon discussion that's going to be in several parts and exciting and inclusive and stimulating. Now, this morning we looked at the breadth and complexity of the issues surrounding sustainability and the challenges that face each of us. Although the 17 Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by governments, change is only going to happen if politicians legislate, corporates change their business models, and society makes its demands for change known. And of course, broadcasters have a crucial part to play in if that sort of change is to happen in the modern world. And of course, they've themselves two areas, key areas for them that they need to manage. The first is their programming and how they can use it to stimulate and start conversations about and awareness of sustainability. We're going to look at that in depth later. But they have another area to consider, and that is their own sustainability as corporates. They cannot and should not be exempt. Industries such as the media have to demonstrate that quite clearly they are acting in sustainable ways across all their operations. And this isn't just about reducing their carbon footprint. That's a difficult enough challenge on its own. But when you add in diversity, equal opportunities, and a whole raft of other issues, the subject becomes immense. Last week in the UK, we heard that national broadcasters and the British government have committed to doubling the number of disabled employees by 2020. Major broadcasters, including the BBC, ITV and Sky, are among those who've signed up to support this important initiative. To help us explore broadcasting sustainability across operations and across people, let me introduce Jane Worthington, who is going to chair. She is the Director of Programme and Development at the International Federation of Journalists, the IFJ. She's based in Australia. Jane's led the IFJ's press freedom and development work in affiliate countries across the region, focusing on issues including something that's close to my heart, safety of journalists, as well as things like gender rights advocacy. Jane, over to you and your panel.
Here's one prepared earlier. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, and thank you, Simon, for the introduction. It was really good to be on the sessions this morning to see and hear about setting the scene for what we're here over the next day or so to talk about media sustainability. And this session is about the need for media companies and media organisations to encourage debate and discussion about the issues of sustainability within them. And it's important within that we as media representatives, that we take a lead in discussions about sustainability. So we're going to talk in this session about how broadcasters and production companies and myself in terms of journalist unions and representative bodies are working to reduce the carbon footprint and cut the use of plastic to benefit the environment, but also to look about how we can tackle some of those bigger issues within our production. So it's twofold the way we look at sustainability. It's looking at the crisis of society, environment, democratic crises, poverty, financial crises, armed conflicts. But it's also the crisis of journalism that we're facing as well as an industry, which comes out of the falls in consumption, the changes to the advertising model that has always funded journalism. So when we're talking about sustainability of our industry, it's this two-pronged sort of approach that we need to think of in that. Joining me today, I have Rosa Canela-Mas, and she started her career 12 years ago in working with media people. She says she's not a journalist, but she's very involved with the media. And she's worked in production and direction with with a lot of Spanish and English programs across drama, comedy and factual entertainment. She's also got a Bachelor of Science in Sustainability and Environmental Management and gives advice to media productions on how they can calculate and reduce the environmental impact. 2 years ago, she joined the Albert Project as a sustainability industry manager. And so she manages both the carbon footprint calculator that Albert runs, and it works with giving a sustainable production certificate to productions within the Albert program. So working with media companies to help them understand the issues and also to train media professionals about the impacts of the work that they're doing. So she's working on site with a lot of productions to help them on the way. And also joining me is Joshua Griffin, and he is the Diversity and Inclusion Lead at the Special Broadcasting Service in Australia. A place close to my heart. I also used to work there as well. SBS is Australia's multicultural and multilingual broadcaster with services in television, radio, online streaming and emerging platforms. And it's a very well-respected broadcaster in our country. And its aim is to inspire Australians to explore, respect and celebrate diversity and make Australia a more cohesive society. So, but diversity, as Josh will explain to you, is only part of the equation when we're talking about sustainability. And so he's working with SBS to broaden the picture and broaden that remit beyond diversity to a broader picture of sustainability. So welcome. And as Simon said, I'm the acting director of the IFJ Asia Pacific. The IFJ is the largest voice of journalists globally, so we represent about 600,000 journalists in 146 countries. We have about 178 affiliate members around the world, so in some countries multiple members, and they're journalist unions and journalist associations representing and advocating for journalist rights. Here in the Asia Pacific, we represent 32 affiliates, journalist organisations in 23 countries. And so these organisations together represent about 52,000 journalists, including about 7,500 women. And I'm mentioning women because one of the big things that we've been doing within the IFJ over the last, over the last decade, and more so in the last 6 years, has been looking at the issue of gender equality in our media and finding ways to take the message down, right down to the newsrooms about changing the culture within newsrooms, because if media are going to change the story more broadly, they need to change the story within their own organisations. So we can't really have an equal media if there aren't women in decision-making roles, if there aren't women driving the news agenda. So we've been doing a lot of training with women journalists and men journalists. It's not just one part of the picture. It has to be inclusive and having men and women as part of the discussion. So so that's a little bit about all of us. So now I'm going to start. Rosa has got a PowerPoint and a presentation that she's going to give to explain a little bit more about Albert. And I'm told no one should ask what Albert means because it's an unknown. But so thank you, Rosa.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to do a presentation about what our project is about, mainly because we feel it's quite unique. And I really want you to understand what we do in the UK about sustainability and media production. One sec, because I've got lots of things in my hands. Okay, so why do we think that sustainability and the environment is relevant to media productions? So basically, our operations have a big impact. So maybe we are not the industry with the biggest impact compared to, for example, the energy industry. But however, we still have an impact. So we travel a lot, we use lots of energy, we create lots of waste as well. We build a lot and we throw away lots of sets, for example. Also, we have a big influence on our suppliers, across the industry as well. So we're going to see some examples about how we can influence our suppliers. And obviously we cannot carry on the conversation without talking about our audience, how we can normalize, how we can put out there sustainability for the audience to get familiar with the topic. So what is the BAFTA-Albert Consortium? The BAFTA-Albert Consortium features 14 organizations, mainly the main broadcasters in the UK. So we have the BBC, ITV, Sky, Channel 4, Channel 5. I'm not going to mention all of them because if I forget one, I'll feel really guilty. And the main production companies as well. So we're talking about Warner Brothers, we're talking about Endemol, and our project is completely altruist. So for me, the words that I like to use is collaborative and altruist. So basically, all these organizations, they are competitors out there. But when in terms of sustainability, they all collaborate to each other. So we all make the decisions together, and they all fund the project. And they all fund the project for the whole industry in the UK to use our tools for free. So basically that's what they do. They want to offer the option to every production company and every production to be able to calculate their carbon footprint and to reduce it for free. Because we believe with sustainability, it's not about money, it's about the planet and about all what we've been talking this morning about future generations. Sorry, because I'm quite bad at PowerPoint, so you'll see that there are some weird things. So what do we do? So our purpose, we have two main purposes. That is to reduce environmental impact of the production process. So that would be more operational, more logistic. And our aim is to become carbon neutral. We are really ambitious. But the consortium, we have meetings every 4 months, and the consortium agrees that we have to be ambitious. We do, if we're gonna talk about influencing audiences, but we need to be ambitious ourselves if we want the audiences to be ambitious as well. And that links to the second point, that's to help content makers to engage audience on the topic. So basically, we do have the responsibility to talk about sustainability with our audiences, to tell them real stories, so what's happening out there. So how do we do that? So we provide tools, which I'm going to explain in a minute. We provide tools and we provide education. We talk all together across the industry, so we kind of decide our goals together. So we don't really believe that each company should have different goals or should have different strategies. We are a whole industry, so we should do it all together. Yeah. So that would be our toolkit, that we call it, and I'm going to go through it. But we have a carbon calculator. This carbon calculator now is compulsory to complete for the main broadcasters. So we have BBC, we have ITV, Channel 4, Sky, and UK TV. So what does this mean? This means that if you commission for one of these broadcasters, it's compulsory for the production. We're talking about productions, not production companies, productions, to calculate their carbon footprint. Otherwise, directly speaking, they don't get paid the last part of the budget. Yeah? So this carbon calculator can be completed by the production teams during the production, so they start working towards it from pre-production until post-production. And now it's been completed we have over 3,000 footprints completed, which is really important because that gives us data that then we can analyze, because obviously we're talking about we have a big impact, but you can ask me, how do you know we have a big impact? Yeah, so I'm going to give you the number that we always give to production teams, to anyone in the industry. So basically in the UK, to produce 1 hour of content, just 1 hour of content, has an impact of 13.6 tons of CO2. What does this mean? Because that doesn't mean anything to me if I say 13.6, I don't really know what this means. So this is the same impact of running 3 homes in the UK on electricity and gas for a full year. Just doing 1 hour of TV in the UK. So that's when we say that to television, to the people on television and film, they're like, okay, yeah, we do need to do something because we do have an impact. So that's why it's really important that productions, even productions that they're not commissioned by all these broadcasters, they still do the carbon footprint because they want to give us this data and they want to have a knowledge of what their main impact is. So then, after the carbon calculator, then we have the certification standard, which is non-mandatory, but we believe that, okay, you can calculate your carbon footprint, this is good, but then let's do something about it. Yeah, just calculating doesn't change anything. So we created the certification standard, which we have 3 pillars, that is reducing carbon, best practice, so kind of like driving innovation and driving change, and communication. Communication is really, really important to us because we believe that unless you explain your crew why, so what's happening and why they should reduce their carbon footprint, they're just not going to do it. They're just going to close the door on you. They're going to be like, why I have to complete the carbon calculator? Why do I have to complete it? Why are you giving me more work to do? So it's really important for us to communicate and to tell them the reasons why they have to do it, to empower them, basically. So now we have over 350 productions certified, a little bit less than the calculator, but we're going at the right path. So when a production passes the certification, they get an N-Credit logo, which is that logo, which, trust me, they get so excited every time that they get sent the logo, because they can feel that they made a difference. They can feel like, okay, I produced a program and look, I'm different than another program. And we do have now this logo across all broadcasters, across lots of really famous productions in the UK. And actually we have it on productions that they broadcasted in Australia and New Zealand, Coronation Street, we have, and I think they broadcasted around your countries, which it makes us even more proud. And just as an example, and the average savings of a production that goes through the Albert certification is they reduce their carbon footprint around 15% because they calculate a predicted one and then a final one at the end. And they can save around £6,000 on the production. That depends on the genre, because I've seen drama production saving around 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 pounds. So it depends of the size of the production as well. So it kind of saves money as well, and that's a good business case to put out there. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. It was so hard to decide which examples because it's so many and they're really nice. So we've got Victoria Series 2, which is a period drama, a massive period drama now in the UK. And that's a really interesting case study because basically the head of production, he's really keen on Albert. He loves the project, and they were using generators on a studio. And he said on Series 2, he said, I really don't want to use generators anymore because it's so bad for the environment. So he talked to the facilities manager and said, listen, I want to stop using generators. I just want to plug into your main electricity. But the facilities manager said, you can't do it because you use too much energy. So what was the solution? To speak to the lighting director and say, okay, we need to use LED, because if we use LED, we're going to reduce our energy consumption. So it's collaborative within the team as well. It's not only the production team, it's the whole crew that needs to get involved. So they managed to introduce 50% of LED of their lighting, and thanks to that they could plug into mains, and you can see the savings there. I think it's a 90% reduction of CO2 on energy in studio, which is huge actually. And I think their savings, it was 65,000 pounds overall on savings. And yeah, I think it was 60, sorry. And I don't remember the carbon reduction, sorry. Then we've got Emmerdale, which is a continuing drama, which has been going on for over 40 years in the UK as well, really, really big and famous. They use 100% renewable energy, which is really good. They introduce lots of editorial content as well. I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later. So basically, they introduce hybrid cars, electric cars in the background. You don't even have to mention it. It's just having them in the background. We've got a picture there that they include signs like that they say that they sell locally sourced food as well. And they bought 7 new hybrid cars, which that's going to save them £64,000 in 4 years. just in petrol. And actually, they use these cars. These cars are production cars, but they use them in the background as well. So you can actually, it includes editorial content, which is really good. And the last example is ITV Daytime, which includes This Morning and Good Morning Britain, and they like magazine programs, morning programs. And really, this goes really into the innovation and technology. So they partnered with Mitsubishi, and they bought satellite cars for live transmissions. So they bought them hybrids. So they have the dish, the satellite dish. This dish can go away. They can put it away. They can put it back, and they kind of develop this technology with Mitsubishi all together. And that's what I was saying about the suppliers. These programs are massive. These programs use lots of cars. So Mitsubishi decided, okay, I'm going to invest with you and I'm going to work with you to make a change. So how do we achieve that people get on board with us? That people on the production teams, that people on productions get on board with us? We do have a training. So, and all this, again, I'm going to insist, all this is for free. Thanks to the consortium, we fund that, and we give all that for free to the whole industry in the UK. So we do one-day training a week, normally, around London or around the country as well. And in this training, what we do is we teach the industry about climate change, about the science, about the economics, about the politics, about the sustainable development goals, because they need to understand what's going on. And then in the afternoon, we speak about TV production, we speak about the impact, and we speak about the solutions. We give them ideas, we give them examples, what you can do in your production to reduce it. Yeah? That helps us motivating people. I had so many people walking into the course, because I teach the courses as well, looking at me like, oh gosh, I have to listen to that woman for an hour, for a full day, for 8 hours. But then it's kind of, and they leave the room just saying it. I had so many people coming to me saying, I'm going to do it for my children. I have to do it. It's just no way I'm not going to do it. You know, so it's about motivating them. It's about empowering them. It's not about telling them what to do. I can tell you what to do because you won't listen to me. But I can give you ideas of what others do. And then you can just create your own thing. And I think that's what the people wants to feel, that they're doing something and they're deciding that they're doing something. Yeah. So we train just for numbers. We love numbers, obviously. We trained around 2,000 people in the UK and over 250 internationally already, which that makes us really proud. This is our website. It's just, I just wanted to put it out there because I would love you to go and have a look at what there are case studies, there are tips. We've got suppliers. It's everything about the UK, obviously, but I'm sure you can get lots of good ideas. We are albert.org. And then, lastly, we opened an international partnership because we believe that we have an amazing product here. We created an amazing project, which is completely unique, as I mentioned. So we really want to collaborate and partner with other countries because it's the same that in the UK. Why other countries have to start from scratch? It's been a really long journey. Like if another country wants to come to us, we're really happy to give them the tools, we give them the tools, the website. The Netherlands, so we have Netherlands, Canada, and Dubai at the moment, and it's so exciting to see the website in Dutch, which I don't understand anything, but trust me, it's so excited to see it in Dutch. So we give you the website, we give you the carbon literacy training content as well. So, and it's a way for us to kind of use a common language around the whole industry worldwide. And yeah, it's just if we want to reduce the carbon footprint in the UK, why not to do it in the whole world? Yeah. And that's it from me. Thank you. Just make sure you write my email address because I don't have cards. So please.
Thank you, Rosa. It's quite incredible to see so many companies come together to create an initiative like this. I mean, you know, and so impressive. Not only can Britain boast some of the best, you know, television, it can boast, you know, this very trailblazing program. I mean, how did it what was the inception point? Who set this in train, and how did it get started?
So this was started by the BBC.
Yeah.
So the BBC created a carbon calculator because their sustainability department, they were concerned about. So basically, they had the worry that they wanted to calculate the carbon footprint of their programs. And that's how it started. They created a carbon calculator, but then they wanted to share it across the whole industry. But the problem is, like, obviously, your competitors are not going to want to use your tool if you own it. So the BBC kind of gave it to BAFTA. So BAFTA doesn't put any money on it, doesn't fund it. It's just the facilitator. It's just kind of the person who unifies everybody. So then from BAFTA, we developed the certification and we developed other tools.
And they might get a BAFTA at the end of it if they join in.
We're not there with the awards out, which is quite frustrating, but we'll get there at some point. We will.
No, it's a terrific program. So and in terms of, does it go out through news programming as well as drama productions?
Yeah. So we have every genre using it. I have to say, news, maybe they're not quite there yet. Yeah. So for example, I certified a regional news program, but with them, what we would like to work more is on editorial. For example, on how can they introduce sustainability and how can they introduce sustainability on a positive way. This morning we were talking about, so we really used to see on the news, on other programs as well, factual programs, for example, it's like how we're destroying the planet, how bad we are. And to be honest, when I come back from work after 8 or 10 hours work, I don't want to sit on the sofa and be told I'm a terrible human being. So what we're trying to educate journalists is how to present the positive stories as well. Obviously, you need to present the reality, and the reality is that there's bad things happening, but the reality is that there is really good things happening as well, that communities are coming up together to create solutions to climate change. So that's what we would like to see on news programs and other programs as well.
So the media itself is probably, would you say, dragging or lagging behind a little bit on taking up this opportunity? Yeah.
So kind of like, I'm not going to tell a journalist what to write, because it's what I was saying. I'm not a journalist, but I can present you with the facts, and I can present you with the negative and the positive facts, and then I think it's your responsibility to present it out there to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, one of the obstacles then is obviously getting that message through into newsrooms, into that editorial process, and how are you overcoming those obstacles? I mean, taking that one regional newsroom that you talked about, do you take that case study through to a major newsroom, and how do you convince these journalists that they can be very stubborn about how they approach their job, and they certainly don't like to be told what they should or how they should report? How do you make it more palatable, or get them to sort of, I guess, take off the blinkers to open their minds to seeing the other stories or potential?
I mean, I know the BBC is working on it a lot right now, but I'm not particularly working with them because they have in-house people doing sustainability with them. But basically, when your organization is funding a project about sustainability, when your organization is doing a program about, I don't know if you've heard about Blue Planet, which was huge last year about plastic pollution, and we saw a video this morning about the plastic island. So when actually your company is reporting about that and is doing something, it kind of like triggers down. But obviously it's really important to get senior leaders on board, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that's been hard. Yeah. That's been really hard, and that's why we started operationally. That's what we were doing, calculating the footprint, taking actions to reduce it, but then to go to the editorial has been kind of like the latest state, the latest stage. But yeah, it's important to get the senior leaders involved.
So perhaps we'll go from that to Josh, because you're covering the experience of a broadcaster, one broadcaster on dealing with these issues, and if you can talk a bit more about how you're making that work in Australia.
Sure. So I guess maybe specifically on the point that Rosa was talking about in terms of, I guess, the role of the media in influencing the broader population. And you know, I've heard the expression, certainly not my expression, I've heard the expression used many times before over the years that the media effectively has a brain print rather than a footprint, which is its ability to kind of influence other people. I think the first challenge, and it's a challenge for journalists, and I think it's a real one that we need to reckon with, is our expectation of what they're actually there to do. So is the job of a journalist to report on reality, which is unsustainable, our unsustainable reality, if you like, or is the job of a journalist to inspire a sustainable future? And I think the reality is probably that it's somewhere in between, but I think that's quite a challenging thing to ask journalists to grapple with from an editorial perspective when you're asking them to take particular angles on stories. That seems like quite a sort of vague brief, if you like, in terms of how they should be covering it. And I think that, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to take editorial control over a newsroom, that generally is kind of frowned upon. So I think it's actually more about inspiring and selling, and perhaps it takes longer, but I actually think that we need to bring journalists along on this journey as well. And I think as an organisation, you know, and obviously only looking at it from an SBS perspective, I think it's okay as well if you have journalists that say, actually, that's not my brand of journalism, that's not what I'm after, or that doesn't align with my values, to actually say that's a really brave choice as well. You know, how can we help you to find a job somewhere that's perhaps going to be more aligned to your way of thinking? So there's this theory called nudge theory, which is a kind of long-term, small kind of incremental rewards in terms of the kind of behaviour that you want to see. And I think there's probably a bit of that needs to happen in terms of not punishing journalists and not placing unrealistic expectations on them, but actually encouraging them over time from a cultural perspective, and particularly from the leadership within newsrooms in particular, but actually editorially more broadly, to actually encourage people to start to explore a bit more nuanced perspective on their stories. Because the reality is the world's not all doom and gloom. You know, climate change is the best example because it happens to be the one that everyone's kind of talking about, and there's actually plenty of things that you know, scientists and researchers are actually doing around the world. You know, fascinating projects that probably don't get the airtime that the hurricanes and typhoons and things do. But I think that's an important part of the story. It's
covering those three areas when you're trying to tackle this and create new models in it, be it a newsroom or in a media production company. It's the economics of the situation, it's the culture of the news organisation, and it's the storylines themselves. What stories are you trying to tell? I mean, on the issue of on gender equality, I mean, we just say, well, if journalists are only being told by male journalists, or decisions editorially being made by just one half of the population, then you're only getting half of the story. So actually, if you're changing and challenging the way things may have been done traditionally, you know, you're opening up the possibilities for fresh perspectives. And you know, in the example of, say, an economics story, you know, how far are they delving down into the issues of sustainability rather than making it a straight out business story, for example, rather than giving it the context of the various factors, whether it's the labour situation involving particular workers or whether it's the environmental impacts around stories. I mean, how does that play out in your work?
Well, I think, you know, and SBS is the multicultural broadcaster in Australia, so we generally will focus on migrant communities, and that's sort of the angle that we will take. I think what you're describing is particularly true when we look at mass migration, refugee crises. You know, yes, there's kind of geopolitical things that lie behind that, but often there's a sustainable angle to those stories as well. Why are people fleeing from their home countries, and why are they coming to Australia? It's not just a story of how do they integrate into our society and how do we support them with their language. It's actually a more broader story of what is the global pattern that is leading to these things that we're seeing. And I do think there is absolutely, you know, embedded at the core of that, I think there is a sustainability challenge.
So in terms of the sort of the understanding of sustainable development. I mean, how would you rate that knowledge, the knowledge within media companies right now? I mean, I don't know if that's an impossible question to answer, but if the media companies themselves don't have an understanding of these issues, then it's a challenge.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's an impossible question to answer, but I can. Well, it's impossible in the sense that I can answer for myself. I can't obviously answer for media companies broadly. I would say the knowledge is poor. I would say my own knowledge is poor. I've listened to things this morning that have made me, just today, think, wow, what a fascinating, why aren't we thinking about that? Why aren't we doing that? And I think, if I, as someone who has an active interest in learning about this and pursuing it, would describe my knowledge as poor, then I would imagine that more broadly, a thorough understanding of proper sustainability outside of, we've got to use less paper, is probably poor, I would say. But again, I can only talk for me.
I think it's really poor. I think you're right, and I've got the experience. I do teach the industry, the TV and film industry, about climate change, about sustainable development goals, and yeah, I do feel it's poor, and I do feel that's why we don't do more. I don't think people is terrible, is horrible that they don't care about the planet. It's just they don't know, and we need to give them the tools to do something. So I think it's our responsibility. I'm talking about production companies, but then as media, as storytellers, is our responsibility as well to educate the public. And I really like what you said about the migration, because we speak about that on the training course that we do, and people doesn't do the relation. When people think about refugees, they think about war. They don't think about climate change, and so many refugees are due to climate change. And we don't see that in the media. We don't see this connection. So we see we think about the environment and we think about polar bears. Polar bears are really cute and really nice, but it's about human beings. It's about people that has to leave their home country because of climate change. And that's what we're fighting in the UK with this project to see on TV, and that's why we're educating the industry.
And it's making for much more interesting stories, I guess, is the end game, but also hopefully making media companies economically more profitable if they're telling stories that are more relevant to audiences. I mean, when we talk about the tools of journalists, sorry to go back to journalists, but when we talk about the tools of journalists, fact-finding, shining a light, bringing the powerful to account, sustainable development, it's not in the toolbox of journalists yet. So how do we get that in the toolbox? And one of the ways that certainly one of the ways that we're trying to get it in the mindset of journalists around gender equality is have other journalists, training other journalists about the importance and explaining the difference that it makes within their working environment, as well as in the coverage that they produce when they have women journalists telling these stories, when women journalists are telling political stories rather than being confined to the education or social rounds or whatever it may be in those traditional environments. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think there's layers in terms of the kind of sell around some of these things. I think obviously there's an executive layer, and I think that the business case for diversity of thought, particularly as it relates to gender, but actually more broadly, is fairly well established. And money obviously talks, and profitability talks. So that's one thing. Selling it cascading the whole way down is a bit of a different challenge, and it actually requires inspirational leaders, people that you can't tell someone to be inclusive or to care about something if they don't. You actually need to have someone that they respect, that they admire, to act as a role model. I think in terms of, I guess, the value of diversity of thought, yes, there's a kind of profitability angle, but actually when it comes to team dynamics, being more innovative and responsive and adaptive in a world where, I can speak for our workplace, where social and digital are just accelerating and there's new platforms coming out all the time, it feels like change is just this kind of constant thing that people are having to grapple with. So having the ability to kind of innovate as a team and get different perspectives that are different from your own, I think is a real benefit to people once they actually have the chance to experience that. And I think that's part of the challenge is representation. So representation's one half of the equation, you get people in the door, but actually if you want them to stick around, you need to make sure that the experience they have is actually inclusive. So it's all well and good to say, oh, our team is 50-50 male-female, but what is the lived experience of the women within that organisation? For us, we have a real focus around inclusivity more broadly. So when we talk about gender, we don't talk about women's issues. We talk about barriers on the basis of gender, and some of them are men's issues. So some of the things that disproportionately impact women are actually men's issues. So men's mental health, for example, toxic macho cultures and the impact it has on women, men as carers, so caring for children often falls to women as well. And do we have policies and systems in place that make it very overt that men can actually take parental leave as well, and we'll support them to the same degree that we would a woman. So there's a number of factors there, I think, that need to be addressed rather than just a kind of simplistic view of we need more women.
On that issue of equality, yeah, it's getting that message across that equality is about men and women, not men versus women and women getting ahead, that it's about creating a space that's actually going to be healthy for everyone in the long run if this culture is perhaps changed and modified to more accurately reflect society. And I guess that's happening also in the productions that you're seeing as well.
Yeah, with diversity.
Yes.
Sorry, we don't touch diversity. we only speak about sustainability and carbon footprint. That's mainly what we do. But answering your previous question about economics and about, obviously we know money is really important in productions. Definitely we know that. But on the journalist side, so basically if you have a production, when you're reducing your carbon footprint, you're saving money. That's a fact that we have the numbers for it. And then sustainability sells now, actually. I don't like to use the word sell because it's kind of commercial. And again, I said our is really altruist, it's not about money, but it does sell. And we know that lots of the younger generation, they do care about sustainability, they do care about the planet, and they look for content related to that. And they really don't find this content on TV. And that's why they go to social media, because they can find this content on social media. So why we don't put this content on TV? And talking to news teams, to journalists, I had a really interesting discussion about it, that I was saying, that young people, they're interested in sustainable fashion, they're interested in last-longing products, they're interested in not damaging the environment, they're interested on equality, like gender equality, but then we really don't see that on a normal news program. And actually they said, yeah, you're completely right. It's kind of like they carry on like the old-fashioned way, but the world is changing, and maybe we need to change the content and how we explain the content on the news, because otherwise people just go on internet.
That's right. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, and it's the fact that the media industry globally is undergoing a massive cultural shock. Its economic foundation has been ripped out from under it. We've seen the mass shedding of jobs of journalists globally. Journalists are working, those who are left are working harder than ever before. So, just to do their jobs, they're being paid less. We know this. They're longer hours, being paid less. And then, and having the extra demands of working in a multimedia environment. So, they're juggling all these things, and then, to have this sort of, society sort of, or a news agenda coming through whether it come through the media organisation saying, we want some more stories on this. You've got journalists that are absolutely shattered trying to think, I can't even get home to see my family at the end of the day. How am I going to do this? But but what we're seeing is that there are new models coming up, and new types of media are evolving out of this sort of, I guess, it's not a revolution, it's a devastation that's happened to the media. But I see it as an opportunity for change of culture and the change to the way media operations have always traditionally worked. Is that your experience? within SBS? Has there been much of a change in the nature of the organisation in terms of funding? Obviously, it's a public broadcaster.
Yeah, look, I think we've probably been relatively insulated, by virtue of the fact that we're comparatively kind of small. However, you know, it's obviously not escaped our attention the broader impact to the media industry in general. And I think, you know, we were talking this morning, I think there's like 5,000 or 6,000 journalist redundancies in Australia. You know, that is obviously a significant hit to journalism and to the media more broadly. I'm not sure I have all the answers for how to save the media industry necessarily, but I think, you know, there's probably a couple of things that organisations really need to start to take really seriously, and the first one is around audience centricity. So, you know, from bang on about we're audience-centric, you hear a lot of organisations say that, but I think meeting the audience where they are now on a platform they choose at a time that they choose, the reality is that's how audience is consuming media. And so we need to make sure that actually our platforms, our technology, our stories are available to people to consume when they want. So the idea that we're going to somehow slip back to everybody going home and watching the evening news at 6 o'clock is kind of a fantasy. That's not going to happen. The second thing I think is trust. So, you know, I think we have seen a huge hit to the industry, particularly in the last 2 years, off the back of the kind of, you know, fake news mantra, in terms of trust in mainstream media. So I think trust as a commodity, and it is a measurable thing. Sorry, not a commodity, but as an asset, and it is measurable. I think is going to be crucially important. And so for organisations that are, you know, to the point that was made before, sensationalising things, obviously that happens to different degrees, and there are obviously some organisations that have far less rigorous editorial controls over that sensationalisation than others. That's going to start to become a real detractor to their trust factor. And if you're viewing your trust factor as actually something that might save us or doom us, that starts to become really relevant to how you tell stories.
I think the idea of the endorsement that comes through Albert is an interesting one that could translate, you know, you're getting that trust stamp. Comes back to the media and getting an endorsement. I was reading that Google is now working on a project to set up a way for people to subscribe to media in an easy way through its platform. So, you know, you get an endorsement, you know, so when you've got platforms like Google and Facebook taking up 85% of the world's advertising revenue, it's no surprise that media companies and media outlets are suffering when they don't have that revenue stream. So I was pleased to read that you've got Google trying to come up with innovative solutions rather than just sort of parasite off the media and boost its revenue from those who are producing quality journalism, actually working with journalists to come up with a solution that we can sustain journalism, I think is really important too. So I'm aware of the time, but I'm thinking people will want to have some questions, and because we've got about 15 minutes. So would it be, if there's some questions from the floor, otherwise we can keep talking. But it would be good to hear from some of the audience with particular questions for our speakers.
Thank you. You were talking about, you know, persuading newsrooms to actually tell stories in a different way, and another catchphrase that's been used quite a lot when it comes to sustainability is development journalism. Do you have any thoughts about development journalism and what that does for trust? I know you're not journalists, it's very unfair.
No,
I could
yeah,
leave
I'm
that
not.
there and
I'm
answer
not.
it for you, but
Yeah, maybe I actually don't. So maybe I don't know if you had any thoughts you can impart.
Well, actually, this is probably one for Jane. I think Jane would know what I was talking about.
Well,
Development journalism is this idea that you partner up with activist NGOs to deliver a message. That it may well have a good outcome, but has.
I mean, there's a real. It's strange the journalists don't agree, but there is no one type of journalist. We have many types of journalists, and we have diversity within our reporting, structures and in our family of journalists. There are some journalists that are completely, revolted by the fact of being some sort of campaigning type journalist. They say, I'm here to tell the facts and do A, B and C. And then you have others that consider themselves journalist activists, and they have no problem with that. So I think this is a discussion and a debate we have to have about media workers globally, about who we are. And I mean, certainly within, the industries and the newsrooms that I've worked in, there's been this constant debate. Can you be an activist and be a journalist? Of course you can. Of course you can. And is there anything wrong with teaming up with civil society to make a difference? Well, in my view, no. But there are many journalists that would disagree with me on that. But, I mean, that's what makes us a broad church in that respect. And I think, it's about us accepting that there are different positions about what constitutes journalism. But I think the case that we have to make is that, if you are following your mantra as a journalist, and that is to make the world, more informed and have the information, have the facts, then doing that sort of work, to me, seems logical. But others would disagree, perhaps. Yeah.
Can I chip in? So yeah, it's what Jen was saying. It's about we have the scientific facts, and maybe if you are a journalist and the audience doesn't trust you, it's maybe because you're not using the scientific facts. And that's something that I always thought, that we have the scientists, we have the politicians, we have the media, but they don't really communicate to each other. And these scientists, they spend the whole life creating all this data, and they have amazing data. And as a journalist, we have to learn how to provide this data to the public. Obviously, you're going to choose the data that you prefer. You're going to choose the topic that you prefer, and you can be an activist. But as soon as you have your facts, and as soon as you have your scientific facts with you, no one can doubt you. And I think that's an important bit.
I think, on that line as well, I mean, we've had the traditional beats, if you like, in journalism, your education, business, and then environment came in there. I think those definitions are becoming harder to, as a journalist, to be one specific type of journalist in that regard. When we're talking about sustainability, you can't just tell a business story without telling, I think in most cases there would be some other kind of element or layer to that story that will make it far more interesting. That if you're delving down, and if a journalist were just to go through that list that we heard this morning from Simon and ask themselves the question, like, is there an angle for that? Is there an angle for that? And just questioning themselves on a day-to-day basis, like, is there a link to this story that perhaps ties into gender equality or whatever, that would make it a much more interesting story. We were talking about fast fashion this morning, and that's not just a story about a business case. It goes to the environment, it goes to labour rights, and so it's a much more interesting story when you're actually pulling it apart and seeing, that this goes back to the factories in Bangladesh where these clothes are being made, and women and men are being paid, ridiculously low wages, and their lives are at risk because they're producing these clothes for Western markets that no one thinks about. So opening up that story.
And for me, it's a no-brainer. It's like 97% of the scientist community agrees that climate change is due to anthropogenic activities. So for me, it's a no-brainer that we should be telling that. So I think from our project, from Albert, we are really ambitious, and because we're quite far now with the project, we've been years working on it. It's just a no-brainer. We just need to be telling that.
No, but just a comment. I think from a consumer's point of view, from a regular reader, it's very difficult to decipher a journalist from somebody that's just writing something. People don't even have time to actually read through articles right now. They just go through social media, Facebook and Twitter. And you don't know who's, you know, to your point, the fake news, but you as a consumer, you don't know who you should believe. And when you say, you know, facts talk or listen to the scientists, but sometimes who's funding the scientists? Who's funding this data? Because that too is questionable. They can veer it towards one thing versus another. And so I do think that it is, we are going through very, very, I guess, disruptive times where the things that we listen to, read, and see are just coming from all different directions, that I think part of media's responsibility is being able to decipher truth versus fallacy. And that's a big, big problem.
I think as well on that point, and again, apologies, I'll use climate change as an example. To Jane's point before, there are different kinds of journalists. You've got journalists who are really puritanical about balance, and my perspective would be that would sway into neutrality, whereby you have 97% of scientists saying one thing, 3% of scientists saying another, and you bring two people on representing both sides and you give them equal airtime. So that's in my view, that's neutrality rather than balance. However, you also have on the other side of the equation, journalists who would say, well, 97% of scientists agree, therefore the other 3% aren't relevant and we don't need to talk about them at all. And the science is settled and here we go. And what happens in those circumstances, we've seen with the proliferation of social, people have become kind of entrenched in their own worldviews. And so now people are becoming selective on the media they consume on the basis of whether or not they agree with the headline, right? And so if you're actually excluding opposing views altogether, you actually drive people away. So it's really hard. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I think we have to find some way in between there to be able to relay the facts whilst making space for dissenting thought, even if we disagree with it, without necessarily feeling like we have to give it 50-50 and let the audience decide what the reality is. I think that's a dangerous path to go down as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what happens when, in the case of the US election, the outcome there, was where you had a media that was quite clear on what it was doing, but the public was going elsewhere for its information and getting the information it wanted to hear because it didn't feel the media was telling it all it wanted to know. And I feel the general population has gone through, it's not just a re-education of media that we're going through now, it's a re-education of society. And I have a huge amount of faith in the general population in taking this on board, because I don't think it can be just the media's responsibility. I actually think it's government's responsibility, and I think it's the public responsibility to also put a value and faith in the media. I think, there was this, we've gone through this phase of where the media was the enemy, and I think we need to get through that, and we need the public to come with the media, because they've seen what happens if the media is bypassed, that things become very dangerous and unruly, and we need to find a way to fund quality journalism and find places where we trust the content and we can trust the information that's given, that it's giving us the whole picture, but not telling the public what it needs to think, So I think we need to respect the audience, and I think it's coming back to that. The media does have to do some navel gazing. It does have to do some innovation in how it presents stories. So, is that a bit doom and gloom? Any last comments? And
So I thought it was really interesting what you were saying about neutrality versus balance. Yeah. And recently, especially with climate change, but also with things like the rights of transgender people, basically everything to do with sustainability, you have people given the same amount of airtime when they have views that might be on the fringes of that particular genre or a field. And so you see things like the editor of the Financial Times critiquing the BBC's coverage of climate change or Brexit or something that's a big issue that affects a lot of people and obviously has a lot of polarizing power. But there is a side that might be more morally grounded or evidence-based. How, in your opinions, do you think the media should go about policing itself when it's an industry that wasn't set up to do that? And in the absence of regulation that is, I think, sustainable or well-intentioned necessarily from political bodies?
That's a really intense question. I think it's what Josh mentioned. It should be a balance, but well, I mean, I'm going to insist on what I've been saying on the fact of climate change. That is what I touch the most. I don't see a balance in media. I don't see this 97% represented in media. So
I think it's a really interesting question around how we police ourselves on our editorial responsibilities as an industry. I don't think that we all agree on what those editorial responsibilities are, and I think this is a stream of thought around how we can take back to our own organisations where we work and try to influence and persuade for our organisations to act in a particular way. And I think from a market perspective, for me, it comes down again to that trust measure, and I think that is going to be increasingly put pressure on media organisations. I think right now you have people placing trust in organisations that aren't necessarily trustworthy or stories that aren't necessarily factual. But I think that can only last for so long, and I think the people that will be duped time and time again, I think will probably be in the minority. So for me, I think building trust for the long term rather than the short term is probably key.
Yeah, this understanding that sort of social media, it goes down to the lowest common denominator. It really goes low content over intelligent content. It's about being viral, and I think that is changing. And like I said, I think the public is becoming wise to this. We're still going through this change, and I think we've got quite a few years to go yet before we come through the other side. But I'm an optimist. I wouldn't stay in journalism if I didn't believe that we had a future. I think we will go through this challenging time, and I think we will find that more broadly the public will learn from this experience too, because it's getting bitten. It's not just journalists that are getting bitten, although we're suffering badly economically as well as in terms of our numbers. But I think that the issue that we see time and time again in the media in Asia is where you have an embattled media, where you have an industry that's under attack both from within and from without, that these journalists are struggling to get through. But I think training is everything. I think going back to what Rosa said at the beginning, it's about knowledge and getting that knowledge out there, and I think we have to just keep working at getting the knowledge out there, training journalists to be better journalists, to do their job in the most effective way, to tell that truth and to get the story out, and by doing so that they make stronger media organisations and they make stronger quality independent journalism that's going to go the long haul. Any other comments? I think that's a good point to end on. Okay, we've gone slightly over. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you very much to Rosa, to Josh, and to Jane for chairing. Interesting points raised throughout this. Picking up on one of the last comments about balance or neutrality, it's quite interesting that in the last few weeks, the head of news at the BBC, Fran Unsworth, issued a note to staff working in the newsroom that it's perhaps now come to the time to stop having two sides of the climate change story, because it is a proven fact. And what she used as an analogy was just as you can't challenge the notion that Manchester United won 2-0 last weekend because that's what the referee decided, the referee has essentially decided that climate change is man-made and therefore you don't need to have a naysayer of climate change on every show. So that's something that the BBC has put forward. So with that, we've heard lots about how we can make our businesses as media companies more sustainable and save money, help the bottom line, which is what senior management want. But thinking about our own lives and what we do in it, let's hear again from some of the people of this region. Should be some VT. Vox Pop, please. Well, I'll just talk. Olivia.
ก็ควรมีเหมือนแบบบังคับใช้อย่างจริงจังหรือว่ามีกฎหมายออกกฎมาแบบแล้วก็ใช้อย่างจริงจังหรือว่ามีวิธีที่แบบจริงจังใช่แล้วก็ให้คนเหมือนแล้วก็อยากให้เหมือนเสนอข่าวหรือว่าทำให้ทุกคนเข้าใจถึงภาวะโลกร้อน
ရေရှည်တည်တံ့မှုပြီး sustainable development ဆိုတာကျတော့နိုင်ငံတနိုင်ငံဒါမှမဟုတ်ကမ္ဘာတစ်ခုလုံးရဲ့ပေါ့နော်စီးပွားရေးနောက်လူမှုရေးပညာရေးနောက်ကျန်းမာရေးအဲ့ဒါတွေနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ရေရှည်မှာပေါ့နော်ဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်အောင်လို့ဘယ်လိုမျိုး sustainable ဖြစ်အောင်လုပ်ကြမလဲဆိုတဲ့အချက်လို့မြင်ပါတယ်
Jadi pembangunan berkelanjutan itu adalah pembangunan di masa kini yang tapi tidak akan merugikan generasi ke depan gitu. Jadi contohnya bisa macam-macam, bisa di bidang sosial, bisa di lingkungan hidup. Nah, sepertinya sih yang banyak contohnya itu untuk apa? Lingkungan hidup ya gitu.
我知道的一个是在生态环境方面的，那么还有一个就是在人文教育，也就是说，我们未来我们的地球人，我们从思想、从意识、从教育形态、从精神面貌，那么它的这个可持续发展。
So a challenge there from the first speaker on that set of Vox Pops to the media on reporting, and a reminder from the last speaker that sustainability isn't just, as we've heard today, about climate change and dirty seas, it's about so much more. So let's take this opportunity to explore how broadcasters and program makers can use their powerful and prolific influence to help society become more sustainable. And let me remind you, this doesn't just mean news programming. It can be programming of all genres. Soap operas, we heard a mention of soap operas, the Emmerdale thing in the UK, entertainment, drama, and children's. They can and must all play a part. To chair this discussion, let me introduce my sparring partner, John Maguire. He's Director of International Relations at France Media Monde, the holding company for France's international broadcasters. John's got extensive experience working in and managing international broadcasting organisations at Radio France Internationale, France 24, and he's going to guide us through this discussion. Good luck, John. Over to you.
Okay, just I'd like to quote before getting into this, one of my favourite journalists, I know she's controversial, Christiane Amanpour, who said, "I don't believe in being neutral, I believe in being truthful." And that's just to close off and round off what was said before. I'm going to be joined on stage by variously different people with different backgrounds, different opinions, I think, as well. And I'm going to invite, first of all, Susan Afan from the Philippines, who's Managing Director of ABS-CBN. We're all going to be talking about similar things, but maybe in different ways. The second person I'd like to invite on board on the ship is Ying Shei, who is a member of RTI's Board of Directors, and he's the chair of the Environmental Quality Protection Foundation. The third person is a Japanese national who's called Masato Kajimoto from Hong Kong University. Where is he? Oh, come. And last but not least, National Geographic's Miley. And that brings up the the crowd of people that we're going to talk to and about and everything else today. Anyway, as my friend Simon Spanswick says, I am not French, I'm Irish, but I work for a French company, and the French company is called France Média Monde. I run a team of about 30 people. My job is Director of International Relations, but I run a team of about 30 crazy people who are being told by the company incessantly to find new ways of reaching out to audiences who wouldn't otherwise be reached out to. We have done products, we've done projects and material on migration flows, and one of the things I'd like to say that, when we're talking about migration, one of the things that struck me very long ago was a story that I read saying the Syrian war, the Syrian conflict started because of drought. The drought drove the people from a certain area in Syria to another, increased the population, put stress on resources, and hey presto, you had a revolution. Now that's simplistic, but it's one of the angles that we don't get covered all that often when it comes to war stories, when it comes to environmental stories. It's thinking outside of the box. Now my job is to think outside of the box, even worse than that, to stimulate people in my team to think out of the box. So, as you know, France is very, very into, and our president is very into, issues related to climate change, contrary to what's happening on the other side of the pond in Washington, D.C. right now with Mr. Trump. So anyway, as a spin-off from the COP21, which was the climate change accord, which came out of the conference in Paris, my CEO said to me, he says, you've got to do something about climate change and reaching audiences. So we came up with using mobile phones as a basis and young people's access to mobile phones, we came up with an idea of connecting people in an area of the world that's not specifically all that interconnected, and that was the Pacific, the South Pacific. Focusing at the nerve center of the project was Fiji, and is Fiji, and this year we're going to broaden it out to the whole world. The project is called EPOP, and it's basically using an awful lot of young people based on in the Pacific Islands, all around the Pacific, to talk to older people, to get their experiences, to produce modules that are broadcastable. And we provide all these modules that are broadcastable free of charge to anybody who wants to take them. We have them ourselves on our television station, France 24. And I'm going to start off by showing you a video of what the project is about. And then I'll just throw another short video about how we use it. And then I'll go to the panel. Okay? So the first video, please. It's the one about pollution.
Binaka. Tubulo binaka. Natago ko siya michitama. Sai pa kubik sa kabul ko. Sutu ka ba mo de? Milaw. Isuba. May tawa na to kayo chiku-chiku ina chinikadiwa. Chinikadiwa ono sa kabul. Dio sa kabul. Chingadiwa Dio sa kabul. Dio sa kabul. Sa siya nga sarap plastik. Tangan hindi umakaw. Ito ko la dula ko alay meron na tangan gulu siya kato mo bici. Jadi kuah sa plastik wala nga. Kita ko ni sakit talo na sto sakit ko to. Ulu to sa tangan mo plastik. Ulo ya tarong nga siya tawa man. Kita pa lagi na plastika. Plastika siya tawa, tapos suji patata na ika si jaro ko to na kadiba itu.
The plastic that we release to the environment due to wave action in the sun will break in tiny pieces that then the aquatic organisms like fish and clams and crabs will eat. What is the problem with that tiny plastic? Plastic has chemicals that are harmful to our health that can accumulate in the aquatic organisms. To the fish itself, they can get clotted and stop eating. They will have that feeling that, okay, I'm full. I've eaten a lot and I'm full of plastics, and plastics has no nutrients. So the fish will start to get thinner and weaker and can get sicker. In the case of bivalves, clams, for instance, we eat the whole organism. So the plastic or microplastics that are inside of that organism, we will be eating them straight away. So we release the plastic is broken down, and in the end, we are eating the plastic and all the chemicals that are in those plastics.
Kaya na rin ito na ito. Yung ito mo talaga. O ito yung maru ito gawa ito maru.
I think, modules that are available online that you can download, and you can actually broadcast them free of charge. There are no royalties. Could we see the second video, please? It's called The Observers. It's the one that shows how we use the material ourselves on France 24.
We are journalists, and normally you have to listen to us, but you have things to tell us too. Maybe you've experienced a dramatic event, or you've got something important to say. You want to make a difference. That is why we created The Observers. Now, the first step is very easy. You get in touch with our team. Send us your images, tell us what you've seen. And then it's our job to get your voice out there, on our site, on social networks, on your mobiles and tablets, and on TV, of course. You can appear in our weekly show via webcam. Or perhaps we'll come see you in person, where you live, in your country, your town, and we'll work together on a report for our investigative show, The Observers Direct. So you get the idea. This show is your show, your way to get your voice out to the world.
Basically, we can broadcast, and we do broadcast elements from this EPOP network on our own television station, and as I said, we offer to other people. Now, Susan, Afan, you also have got anti-pollution projects. I think one of them is called Superhero?
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So I am Susan Afan. I actually work for ABS-CBN, which is the largest media conglomerate in the Philippines. However, I work on the foundation side, and ours obviously are all about advocacies. And it's very, very difficult to do this without funding. And so I have to be very careful working with our parent company to make sure that the sales budget is not being touched, and I only go for the corporate social responsibility budget. And it just so happened that I was able to find one company that is both an advertiser and at the same time is giving us their corporate social responsibility budget to fight pollution. And how we've done this is to come up with some kind of a contest. And it's called Pinoy Superhero, and that actually means a hero driver in the Philippines. So whether it's a car, a jeepney, a tricycle, a bus driver, we find them all over the Philippines. And instead of telling them what to do, we have seminars, and it becomes content actually for our network to see the journey of how we find all of these Filipino drivers all over the country. And then one of the prizes would be for them to come to Manila and have their life story be put on one of our soap operas. And so they're engaged. They look forward to listening to what it is that we have to say. They go through seminars on how it is not to add to the carbon footprint that we already have in traffic congested Manila. And in the end, it's something hopeful and happy and positive because their lives are put on TV and they look forward. And so from 1,000 people getting involved with us on the first year, it became double the second year. And now we're already with over 10,000 people being engaged in this contest that we are doing for finding the best driver in the Philippines every year.
That's actually very similar in a way to our EPOP project, because the EPOP project and your own project is involving people at grassroots level.
Yes.
They are making the news agenda. They are the ones who are deciding things.
Precisely. We are doing the same thing as far as the environment is concerned, where we also have a program called G Diaries, where we do engage an environmentalist. But again, if you only, I mean, it's not as sexy, it's not as interesting, but when you put in some young millennial stars that are part of our, of our network, then it becomes exciting. Then all of a sudden we're rating, because if there are no stars, we don't rate. But the moment we put stars, the young ones who are not yet very expensive, a lot of them I just ask for them, like give me a few of your hours and I promise to give you a certificate of donation. And they do come and they engage with us, and before you know it, we're rating and we're talking about the environment. But in the Philippines, because we're such a poor country, you can't talk about the environment because people don't care. The first thing they have to think about is food in their stomach. The first thing they care about is what do I care about cleaning the environment when the first thing I need to think about is where am I going to get food for my children? And so whenever we talk about this, we have to talk about livelihood. How do these people get some kind of livelihood? Because it's the only way they will listen if they have food in their stomach. So again, we engage them, whether they're basket weaving or they're doing recycling or whatever the case might be. The key, again, is being able to engage them and tell them that we're going to put them on TV. And I got to tell you that this thing also, because of our sponsors that want to do placements, I guess, they are also very, very conscious on what it is that we're doing. And since it's all over the Philippines, they're very, very interested. So that's the environment. Last but not least, also is we do have very much, we are into not just children, education, the environment, but also disaster relief. And many times, I mean, you hear on the news, we're always having a huge typhoon, landslides, and every, calamity that you can think of. And it's really about educating people on why it happens. And so, but the component is going to be put into the most popular TV shows that we have. And we just try and inject it. Because if I go on a lecture series, if I go on some kind of a, just talking, nobody will listen. But if it's some way, somehow intertwined into our most popular telenovelas, then the message comes across.
Are these programs being broadcast on public service broadcasting?
No, these are on our regular, these are prime time.
Yes, but is it public service or is it private?
Well, it's private, but we ask because we are the foundation. I pretty much go to the head and I say, you have to put in, like let's say in some of the scenes there, about not using plastic. And, well, I'm getting support. I mean, I work for a great organization, I do have to say, because I do get the support. But they do it. I mean, I saw one of the things that Rosé put in, which is like somewhere there it said, organic vegetables, we grow organic vegetables. We do something similar, which is they're just placements. So we work very closely with the people in production.
Well, you're very lucky because I think, I'm speaking from the perspective of a public service broadcaster. We're funded by the French people, the license fee. And so we've got we've got a huge leeway in terms of what we can actually invest in for audiences on the ground, be they in the Arabic-speaking world, be they faced with climate change in the Pacific, whereas I think private stations are working on a completely different agenda. One of the things that struck me very, very recently was watching for certain American stations, one of which shall remain nameless, but very close to Donald Trump and pushing the Trumpian agenda, and covering the typhoon, covering the weather, the terrible weather situation that there was in the Carolinas. Nobody in the station thought of putting two and two together and talking about climate change in the same breath as the devastation that was caused by that. And that is an editorial decision. And I think, I'm a defender of public service broadcasting because the agendas are set in private sector media by vested interests. The same goes when it comes to climate with big oil. They're going to push the big oil agenda, they're going to push the coal mining agenda, as opposed to anything to do with renewable energy and renewables. So the public service, the public sector is crucial for me. Just to bring up a point that you made about, the people are hungry, so therefore they're not going to. It's not just a question of poverty, because I had a discussion just before flying out here from Paris with one of my team leaders who's pregnant, and she's about to leave on maternity leave. And I said to her jokingly, I said, since you're very environmentally friendly, I said, I'm sure you're going to be using renewable materials for the child. And she said, are you joking? She said, I have to go and buy these diapers, right? But they cost an awful lot of money. So that was the discussion. Now, she's on a good salary. She said, but I haven't got the time. She said, I do not have the time. And I said, well, go think about it. It was only a joke that I threw out, but her reply was, I don't have the time. So, you know, we're up against an awful lot of difficulties there in trying to get through to people.
That's right.
Yingxi,
yes.
You've got a presentation, a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Would you like to read us through that, please?
If I can get your permission,
Yes.
I would like to introduce my presentation with English and join the discussion with Chinese.
No problem.
And I think it's equal treatment for our foreign friends and local friends. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So, would you please to my PowerPoint? Yeah, because I prepare according to the introduction of our colleagues in RTI, and I prepared this PowerPoint for your understanding of my personal information and my organization. Okay, and the first, sorry, here. I'm a lawyer, and I joined EQPF in 2008. And before that, I used to be the reporter for 5 years. Okay, that's a very short brief of my career. And right now, I'm a full worker in EQPF. I didn't practice lawyer anymore. This is our organization. We focus on education, environmental initiative, and international participation. And talking about the education, with the very, very limited resources, but we commit to go on the spot, go to the school on the spot for, I hope we can reach the goal of 1,000 elementary schools among to 1,085 elementary school in Taiwan. But and after the efforts for more than 4 years, right now we have already completed more than 800 elementary schools for the educational tour. And talking about the initiative, what I want to highlight is one of the initiative is we hope to have a climate change museum for the child in Taiwan, because our neighbor country like Japan and South Korea, they all have their climate change museum, but the financial support is from the government. And then I hope our initiative is provided, financially provided by the private sector. Okay. And secondly, we introduced the CRC convention, which is Child Convention, because we just adopted this convention into Taiwan this year. And we find that the education for the children is most important for us. So right now we are creating the educational tour for the children in Taiwan. And I'm talking about the international participation, because we don't have the internationally recognized entity in terms of the nationality in U.S. forum. So we can only play an observer in UN system, but we work very hard, because starting from 2002, my organization, as I mentioned, with very, very limited resources, we held the side event in UN conference each year, every year. So we have the experience of in engaging in UN conference. And this is our founders. And the reason I want to address the message here is that when they found this organization, the average age is 31. So that's very impressive to me, because that means they are all very ideally persons Right now, actually, they are also very active in our board meeting. They didn't retire. They didn't retire. I hope they can continue their job in here. And this is our activities, because we are environmental NGO. My focus is in the policy monitoring and the legal reform in Taiwan. And of course, you can see here the topics we covered right now. And I hope we can continue this kind of monitoring in terms of the process of the path to sustainability in Taiwan. That's not easy. And this is a reflection from my personal perspective, because we NGO, we always complain. We don't have money, we don't have resources, and we don't have everything. But for me, I think the first thing we have to do is no more complaint, because that's destiny the NGO has. You just has no limited resources as you expect. So I make a decision not to go to the government work if I can make a decision by myself. And I want to prove that even you are not a rich man, you can run the NGO very well with your commitment and with your profession, with your passion. Okay, that's what I want to address here. And following this message, my thinking about the sustainability everywhere in the world is that we are just the process from the very, very beginning. So momentum is more important than any achievement if you want to seek, because achievement, okay, depends on your definition, what kind of achievement you want to have. And secondary, that because I am the legal background, I think right now the legal system, the legal mechanism is all human-made. Human-made, but not for nature, not for climate change. So the rule of law for sustainability or nature is more important than the public policy. And the last one is, of course, the education. Some of our speakers mentioned that the knowledge, from our inner side of heart, the knowledge about the sustainability is so poor. I admitted that. But so education to ourselves or to the public with an innovative way is very, very important. It's very, very important. So I believe education is very, very key in this regard. And this is what we are doing in EQPF with the financial support from our enterprise. We have completed more than 22 fora regarding the environment and sustainable development. And we collected more than 250 films, videos, for the public to learn, to study with free. That's not easy. But I admitted that among this lecturer, I think that's not their problem, but I think the goal to communicate with the public is still on the middle way, because what I want to say is not easy to be a speaker, a good speaker, or lecturer in that kind of fora. If you want to address something helpful or valuable to your audience, that's not easy. Okay, and this is another way we make our efforts, because we write articles I just met our EPA minister, Dr. Lee. He mentioned that he always saw my articles in the newspaper to criticize him. But he welcomed my criticism with reasonable reason. If our criticism is based on the scientific facts, based on the reason, based on the passion to love this land, to love this country, no way to reject this kind of warm caring for the ministers. So we created a website to put all the articles. We keep monitoring our public policy. And this is the last one. I'm making my efforts. That is the climate change law regulation collection, a job of the collection of the different regulation from different sectors in Taiwan and include mainland China. I want to prepare this, to publish this book in the end of this year to educate our officials and our public with these tours. So that's what I'm doing. And with this last photo, I want to share with you that this is the process. You can see the process to evolution. And inside the different image, I use the different characters of the different civilization. And I would like to highlight that we are all parts of the process to sustainability, and it's never end. We are just from starting from very, very beginning. Thank you.
Yinshi, you mentioned education several times. It's
Yes.
obviously something very important in your approach and within your organization. How do you assess the impact of what you try to do in terms of educating a broad swathe of the society in this country? How do you know whether you're succeeding or not?
Can I speak Chinese?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. 我们了解这个群众的反应不是很能够普及，所以我们才制作这个video。那么我们每一次的 video， 我们每一次的这个论坛，我们都收集有限的，大概70-80位的听众他们的反应。但是坦白讲，这样的数据非常的少，然后这个少呢，少到我们没有办法来量身定做，说下一场的论坛我们想要办什么样的题目。所以我对这个问题的理解是，我只能相信说我相信我们内部的自我思辨的这个所谓的环境教育的那个课程内容是更重要，在这个阶段，相对于这个听众或者是民众的反应可能是更重要，因为这个阶段里面我们要过滤或者是判断那个非常多的科学数据，那些科学数据怎么样被转译成，比方说台湾的民众可以接受的语言，甚至假如我可以的话，我用台语来讲哈，那用台语来讲大家赶快开始赛哈，如果可以的话，这样子才是真正在推动我们的外国朋友会有困难，这样子的方向才是真的可以让台湾这个地方的民众，我们有将近2400万人，他们不知道永续台语变了讲，不会讲，所以这个不是一个非常容易的过程。永续这个翻译好不好？英雄，咁好听？无啥好听。So I'm trying to pronounce it in Taiwanese to our local friends. So 我觉得我们对于这个教材的思辨，我说我们主事者对于教材的思辨跟他的区分的能力，可能在这个阶段比我们群众来告诉我说他需要什么更重要。Okay, John, sorry.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's optimistic. We talked about earlier, or at least panelists before us talked earlier, about how you actually convince people about your, what news, the correct news is, the facts. Let's move on to the whole issue of not shouting at people about our opinions, but at the same time trying to get people to differentiate between what is false and what is true when it comes to reporting. Of course, on the issue of climate change, I touched upon the whole lobbies that there are for, say, big oil and coal. And that is not exactly fake news, but it's disinformation in many ways. People tend nowadays not to talk about fake news so much as information disorder, which I think is a much better phrase to describe it. And we have our Japanese friend, Masato, who is an expert in that kind of false news and fake news. How does that apply to things like climate change and the sustainability issues?
Well, so our research shows that the more polarized the country is politically, the severe impact of false news can be observed, right? And lots of sustainable issues can be politicized in those countries, and political climate change is a really good example. And fighting against that kind of misinformation with truth doesn't really work, because once it's politicized, the purpose is the politics. So it doesn't really matter. Science actually tells that it's man-made. People who are attacking that notion is basically against the political stance that their opponent has. Gender issue is the same thing. Gender equality is a big issue in Japan. But when people attack certain messages with misogynic standpoint, is not necessarily thinking about what the other side is saying, right? So basically they are trying to attack the opponent or enemies politically. So once the country is really politicized, it's extremely hard to fight against that kind of misinformation with just facts and truth. So we need some sort of different strategy. And one of the answers we think might work is the education, the news literacy education. Because if the audience could tell the difference between facts from opinions, quality journalism from poor journalism, there will be more market demand for better news storytelling. So instead of, well, of course, it's important for journalists to do better, but at the same time, we need to cultivate market demand for better, more quality journalism, and that requires lots of news literacy education. And that's why I've been doing this activity and initiatives, leading this initiative for the last 10 years or so.
But what do you do about people who don't care that whether it's true or not, so long as it comforts them in their positions, in their bubble? You can fire all kinds of good and correct and accurate information at them,
right,
and they'll still say, don't want to know.
Right. So our curriculum is based on cognitive science and social psychology, and the research shows that the younger you are, more open-minded you are. So nobody is born racist, right? So you become racist at some point in life. So we want to know what age you sort of decide that this is my political stance, this is how I feel about these issues. The older you are, the harder for you to change your opinions. So again, we think that news literacy education should start really early, from primary schools, elementary schools, junior high schools, to tell those school kids how there are other perspectives that exist in this world, and everything is not in black and white. Everything has to be nuanced, right? So that kind of understanding, when you're exposed to that kind of idea when you're young, it's much better. But like you said, older people, it's extremely tough. Yeah, but awareness helps, I think. So for example, when I do workshops, I always talk about how our brain functions. And I talk about why clickbait works, why music in documentary works. Because when we think something logically, certain parts of the brain fires up. When you are reacting to certain information emotionally, different parts of the brain fires up. And the emotional side fires up, your body produces more dopamine. So you feel more excited, you feel happier, right? In general, you feel more lively. So with that knowledge alone, makes you wonder, okay, I like this clickbait. Is it because, my brain's emotional part is now activated? So you actually pause before you share. But measuring impact is extremely difficult. I'm slightly skeptical towards using rating as a measurement of impact, because obviously if you use very popular celebrity, people watch for that reason, not necessarily getting the message of recycling, but they watch because they want to see beautiful faces. So I think, I don't know what the answer is, but there has to be a different way to measure the impact, the news media's impact on society. Engagement on social media can be gamed very easily. And also things like Facebook, for example, if you grab one person, this person click like, comment, and share. That's 3 engagement. So the engagement number snowballs. So it's not really helpful for news organizations to see, we got 7,000 engagement on Facebook. That's a ridiculous way to measure what the social impact is, right? So I think it's something that we should think about.
Right.
Yeah.
And sir, most especially also if you're in a country full of trolls, that's a different story too.
That's your country, actually.
That's my country. Exactly.
Okay. There's a common thread so far going through this, which is education. And one of the things that we do in France being France, we're quite formal, and we call things by names. And one of the things is Les Journées des Médias, which are the media days. And what we actually do is all the media organizations in the country go out to schools, and they'll go into the schools, secondary schools that is, they'll go into the secondary schools and they'll spend a day and they'll talk to the kids and they'll say, this is how media works, this is how our newsroom works, this is how we decide what the news flow is, this is why we decide that's a story worthy of covering or not. And here's the angle, and we decide the angle because. And so that only happens once a year, but then other organizations such as our own tend to do it more times, maybe once a month. We either go out to schools or we get people in, we get kids in, show them the newsroom, show them that it is an alternative to social media. They don't have to be on Instagram all the time. They don't have to be on Facebook all the time or whatever. They can also click in to France 24 and find out about what's happening in the world. Or they can, if they're of an Arabic background but French nationals, they can take advantage of our Arabic language radio and television stations in order to keep in touch with their backgrounds. So we try to do that, and that's an education thing. But I'd like to get back to you on the issue of social media and creating false bubbles of society, because it's such an important thing and it's so difficult for us as public service broadcasters to counter. How would you tell me how to do it? How do I actually fight the extreme reactions that one gets from social media that they're not informed, they're not properly informed, they're just gut reactions, which quite often are extremely right-wing. It's very racist.
Right. So we think that news literacy education is one of the answers, but obviously these we have to fight this together. So platforms have to be involved. So Facebook, Google, we are always talking to those platforms to do something about misinformations in the Philippines, Myanmar. So that's why in the Philippines, for example, Facebook partnered with organizations like Rappler to actually flag false information. So they are working with fact-checking organizations. AFP is doing it in Europe. And Facebook also implemented that in Indonesia and in India as well. So news literacy education is one answer, and of course the platform should do more. And another thing is probably traditional news organizations, they also have to find a way to reach those people who are exclusively getting news from social media. How do we reach them is another thing that probably journalists should think about. So and also parents and teachers, everybody has to get involved. So there's no one easy solution, obviously, I think.
Well, if I can just make a comment, it seems that before you would get your news from credible sources, so as we said, journalists or reputable news organizations. But now we have this new phenomenon called influencers of people that are, where did these people come from? And all of a sudden they're saying things, and like let's say in the Philippines, there was this makeup brand that in 5 minutes, because this one person who had over 1 million followers said something on Twitter, in 5 minutes, the entire line was sold out. You can't even, regular people that have built reputations for years and years can't even do that. And then all of a sudden, this one person just does it and sells. So now the advertisers, I'm sure, will be going to this person and giving this person more of their money versus going through traditional media services.
Right. Now, I'm going to be very provocative here because the last sentence in the menu for our discussion today, and concocted, I presume, by Simon, I don't know. It says, and I'm going to throw this out to you, and I want you to think about it, put it in the back of your mind before we wrap up. We're not wrapped up yet. We have another 20 minutes, I think, right? Yeah? So just before wrapping up, and the question is, this session will construct a plan for media companies to collaborate over the coming months and years for the benefit of humankind. Now think about that. I'll repeat it again. This session will construct a plan for media companies to collaborate over the coming months and years for the benefit of humankind. I'll be asking each one of you for your reply to that, what the plan could be by the end of the session. National Geographic, I know we're going to have a lot of visual stimulation here, Mai Lee, because you're going to show some of your videos.
Yes, thank you, John. My name is Mei Yi Lee, and I'm based in Taiwan. I oversee factual production for National Geographic for the region, and that's Asia Pacific and the Middle East. I've been very fortunate to be based in Taiwan for the past 15 years and to see Taipei and Taiwan's transformation. For National Geographic, it's really part of our DNA. We're 130 years old, starting from the society back in 1888. Our mission is to inspire people to care about the planet. And what better way to do that than to bring everybody together on a day like Earth Day that happens on April 22nd once every year. And I've been fortunate enough to work alongside a very strong marketing team here. They started with Earth Day celebrations back in 2007, working alongside the EPA, doing road shows, doing exhibitions, and now Earth Day runs. So here's a clip of what the Earth Day run, which started in the Philippines, by the way, 7-8 years ago, then came to Taipei, and then to mainland China, Malaysia, and now it's all over Asia. Here's a clip.
Over 35,000 eco-warriors across Asia joined National Geographic's Earth Day Run this year. Together, we ran with one goal in mind: single-use plastic, to raise awareness on our plastic footprint. Let's continue to pave the way to a sustainable future. Let's make our footprints count.
So the channel business here is our core business, and we need to make a lot of content that matter and that resonates. Unfortunately, with environmental and conservation films, it's hard to generate ratings. So I echo what Susan said earlier. What do we do to make environmental conservation films sexier? There are several ingredients, and I was very fortunate to take part in a collaboration last year where we were able to identify certain people and things and places that kind of came together for an Earth Day special, and this is called Jackie Chan's Green Heroes. So back in 2010, 2011, Taipei held its first Flora Expo. And if you go there, that venue right now, you'll still see a interesting looking pavilion called the Eco Arc. It's made out of 1.5 million plastic bottles. It's still there today. It's withstood earthquakes and typhoons. And the inventor of this, or the creator of this pavilion, is a man by the name of Arthur Huang. He's based in Taipei. He has a company called MiniWiz. He specializes in upcycling. And we made a program about him and this mega structure back in 2011. And when Jackie Chan was traveling all over the world, he lived in hotels and such, he saw National Geographic and this program, and he found out about Arthur. And since then, they've decided to work together on making products out of trash, whether it's for his film sets or whatever. But they came to us 2 years ago and said they designed this interesting, like the world's first mobile recycling plant. So their initiative and what they want to do is they want to take this mobile recycling plant to isolated areas where there isn't access to a recycling facility. There's still trash up in the mountains. There's still trash out in extreme environments. What do they do about it? They want to showcase and also demonstrate that these devices can actually help with education there and also make a difference. So here's a clip of Jackie Chan's Green Heroes, where we have Jackie Chan as our superstar. We have Arthur Huang as our guru, our environmental activist person. He's also our emerging explorer for 2016. And we also have a beautiful backdrop in Qinghai, which is in mainland China, up in the elevation of 36 meters, I believe, 3,600 meters, where not a lot of media get to go to, but because of this particular project, we were able to film there. And we also have what's called the Trashpresso machine, where essentially we take this is an example, we take 5 plastic bottles and they turn it into designer tiles. So it's all on the spot, it's all inclusive. This is an amazing contraption, and it's very sexy as it looks like a transformer or some kind of satellite opening up, and it's powered by the sun. So here's a promo of that.
Join Jackie Chan, international superstar, and Arthur Huang, National Geographic emerging explorer and structural engineer. Together, they'll embark on a new adventure for eco-friendly innovations and cutting-edge green technology. Earth Day Special, Jackie Chan's Green Heroes, Wednesday night at 10 on National Geographic.
So that did really well for us this year on Earth Day. We had all the elements in place. I wanted to talk a little bit about our company. So basically, my remit is Asia, but we share a lot of things across different markets. And I had the privilege of learning about something very, very, like a breakthrough thing that's going on in Latin America this year. So it's also for Earth Day. Our Latin America team, everyone's heard of standard definition, high definition, but have you heard of green definition? So on Earth Day this year, we came up with this technology where I'm not a tech person, so I'm trying to explain this. Black mesh, black dotted mesh, right? So apparently what it does is, we're all humans. We can be very lazy. We're couch potatoes when we're at home, right? So all we need to do is turn on National Geographic and watch TV, and we can save 54% of our TV's energy. How? Through this technology, we're able to turn off certain pixels in everyone's television screens. So in essence, it's a kind of a dimmed down version. It's good at night when you're watching TV at night, when there's low light. So imagine when you're working on your phone and it's at night and you want to kind of dim it down a little. That's what it looks like. But in essence, it could save 54% of your TV's energy for that duration. So I don't know if I'm making any sense, but here's a clip. But there's a lot of facts in there, so take a look.
National Geographic brand's DNA is all about saving the planet. That's why we wanted to make National Geographic the first TV channel that could save energy. To achieve this, we designed a special treatment for our content, crafted to turn off half of your television's pixels with minimal losses and quality. Green definition, a new way to broadcast content that can save up to 54% energy from your TV. You don't need no apps, no downloads, no complicated menus. All you have to do is watch TV, like you always did. With National Geographic's reach on Latin America, 1 hour of green definition has the potential to save up to 5.4 million kilowatt hours. National Geographic's first green content aired on April the 22nd during Earth Day. In the future, green definition has the potential to redefine the standards of the industry.
Os testes apontaram que o conteúdo com Green Definition economizam entre 1,6% e 54% no consumo de energia elétrica em função da tecnologia do televisor.
Green Definition, saving energy, pixel by pixel.
It's a little trade on brightness for a better world. And most importantly, it's our way of reflecting our brand philosophy on one of our most important assets, which is our channel. But speaking of assets, National Geographic as a whole, we're a society. And there's not just the channel. We have the magazine, we have digital, we have kids' books, we have travel, we have everything, that 360. So how do we come together as a brand to make an impact? The next photo I want to show you, you probably are familiar with our June issue of the National Geographic magazine. If you can put it up. Is it on there? Okay. There should be a photo. But it's called Planet or Plastic, and it's basically a photo of a plastic bag that is made to look like an iceberg, like it looks like an iceberg. I did have a copy of the magazine, but I gave it to our EPA minister, so unfortunately I wanted to show you. But basically, the idea is to let our readers know that the working life of a plastic bag is actually just 15 minutes, but the actual lifespan of a plastic bag is 450 years. So if you can just imagine, and Nat Geo being so good with our photos, right? I mean, there's just like what we saw earlier today with the plastic aisles. I mean, that's basically, it's just devastating. And how do we, so this Planet or Plastic initiative is our way of trying to reduce single-use plastic and the impact it makes on our oceans. So through our collaborative effort all across the Nat Geo platform, all our brands, we're going to gang together and make a difference somehow and just create awareness and more roadshows, more impact, more programs, more exhibits. So, I mean, I think as a 130-year institution with that respectability that comes with this brand, we have this responsibility to engage everyone in the world to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Plastics are a real curse of contemporary life. I go out to my Paris market on a Sunday to buy my vegetables, and I have a bag that I've had, a plastic kind of bag that I've had for 3 years, and I take it out with me, and every Sunday, the guy at the stall, when I buy my bananas, he gives me a plastic bag to put the bananas in. And every Sunday I say, listen, I live around the corner, 100 yards, I've got a bag, I can put the bananas in, keep your plastic, but it just doesn't get through. It's the same guy every week. So it just goes to show, you try to be proactive in your daily life on these issues, and at the same time you get blowback. So I sometimes don't know what we're supposed to do. Have you thought about the answer to the question about how we can all collaborate in order to make things better? What about you, Miley?
Instead of holding these forums and workshops once a year, we should do it more often.
That's a very good idea, right? Simon. Radio Taiwan International, please take note. Masato.
Probably absolute transparency in each news organization, not just about, So one thing we are advocating is to educate news audience organically through news reporting. So that requires different way to think about news storytelling. Traditionally, even in quality newspapers, when they have some news event, they have facts, but then they interview experts, and those experts tell opinions as well. And there are lots of observations made by journalists, and also some descriptions that journalists are putting in the story. So we are thinking, can we label them like we do in our news literacy course? This is fact, verifiable, so you can actually Google by yourself. This is an opinion from an expert, and here's a link to expert's LinkedIn link. So basically gives more information for the news audience to know more what process journalists went through to verify certain things. And if we could do that across different news media, it might make a slight change. I'm not really sure, but it's something that we've been discussing.
Good. Yeah. It's something that we can hopefully work on yourself.
Yes, I think I have to speak English because that's the last questions. The first one, I think we have to recognize or realize the natural resource capital. Every country, that's the number one for the decision maker. And number two is we have to keep, at least we have to have that kind of mindset to some of the ecological sensitive natural resources. We have to take this attitude to enact on them, not to use, not to abuse, not to, ignore the value for sustainability. And last one, which is my personal innovation, if I can say that. I think we can, with the Chinese Confucius culture, we may have to think about the possibility to create a sustainable family concept. If we can have that kind of concept enforced in every individual members in a family, and for example, from their consumption behavior, the ethics of their teaching manner with their children or with the elders person, and then we use the modern technology, for example, the big data, and then we can give the honor for them as a sustainable family. That could be a very innovative value in the future generation, in the future society. That's, I believe.
Wonderful. Susan?
Okay. I guess I have a flip answer, and I have a more realistic answer. I think that for the flip answer, I mean, the best way for us to be together and to continue the dialogue would be to be in a Viber group, on a WhatsApp group. But it's too big. There's too many of us that maybe the more realistic answer is, I mean, if you heard something today, if something caught your fancy, if somebody said, touched your heart and touched your mind, do something about it. Don't let it stay as an idea. Make it into something actionable by connecting with that person and coming up with something, a concrete project, a concrete follow-up to make it happen wherever wherever you are in the world.
Great. I think the takeaway that we have to have is that we've got to work within our own organizations in order. I see my own organization. It's okay, but what really we need to do, and what I try to do, and what people that I work with closely try to do, is to break out of silos, because the silos they're past tense. People are working in the technical department, people are working in communication department, people are working in human resources. We're all doing the same thing, and we all should be getting ideas, pulling them together, which is what we've tried to do in France Média Monde with projects like this EPOP, with the other ones on migrants, forced migrants, obviously. And other projects, is get people, no matter who they are, even if they're working in the canteen, to get your ideas, to get the ideas from them. Because we can't do anything macro all that easily, because things are being done on a macro level, be it with international institutions, be it on social media, which are pervading everything. I think we have to start at home, and I think the message that I was giving out about the plastic bag every Sunday in a Paris street, that's what we all have to do. Go into your cocktail bar and say, I do not want a plastic straw And my drink, I don't need it. I've got lips, I've got a mouth, and I can actually drink, you know. Comments from the audience. We've got about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd love to hear some feedback. Yes, please. Lady beside the camera. And please say who you are if you don't mind.
Of course, I don't mind. My name is Hope, and I teach in the university. I also do humanitarian works overseas, starting from Southeast Asia until Africa. And I would like to comment, since this morning until right now, this kind of conference and forum is really very fantastic. It's a very, very informative way for us to really sit down and to really listen to different people talking about different issues from different sides of the world. And I've been thinking about something that I would like to share with you too. I have been in Africa for many, many years, and this is the first year that I was able to travel from the route in front of Kilimanjaro, which is so beautiful and near the border of Tanzania and Kenya. And the reason why I was traveling from that route up to the deep areas of the mountains where I work is totally because of the global warming issue. It's because Kenya and Tanzania were suffering from heavy rain and droughts. Droughts for 2 and 3 consecutive years, and then later on, rainfall, heavy rainfall. So when we're talking about sustainability, when we're talking about people collaborating with each other, I also would like to remind all of us and to be at a very humble position to say that we must not forget about those people who are in those areas where they are with so much potential. I really, really am very honored to work with all those people over there, especially when we see their potential growing up and developing their own ways of a different kind of view. I also am very much inspired by whatever that you are talking about today. I especially am thinking about, especially you were mentioning about the taking the kids over there to, or actually the journalists going over there to the middle school to really talk to the kids over there, to share with them what journalism is, so that they are not going to use the media or the mobile phones or whatsoever that we college educators right now are facing, that our students are focusing on their, look at them, they are using their mobile phones and they are not aware that we are talking about them actually. So it's really a very fantastic kind of way to see if they have to really focus on which area. Is it the mass media that they have to focus on, or the journalism, or actually is it that they would have to maybe sit down, not to use the FB or whatsoever? These kind of things are what I would like to maybe comment a little bit, and maybe for me to really think about the next step, maybe next time when I return back to the place, and to how is it possible that we can let the kids know that there are people in the world who are doing something like what National Geographic is doing, and they have no idea because the elephants are just around their window, and then they have no idea about these things. And thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful time over here. Thank you.
Thank you for such lovely comments. Anybody else would like to say something? Yes, please. Can we have a mic? Or you could simply stand up and shout. Yes, of course you could speak in Chinese, of course. Hold on a second.
好，各位好，那我是中原大学应用华语文学系所的研究生。那我本身是华语教师，那也是有在教中学程度的学生。那刚才从5位学者的言谈当中，那我得知其实我们环境教育是非常的重要。虽然我是中文老师，但是我认为环境教育是可以融入我们一般所谓的语言课程。对，那透过我今天从就是各位学者有得到很多的启示，我们以后教学生的时候，学语言不再只是问你好吗，吃饱了吗？对，我们可以用环境。就是现在所谓的国际的问题、环境的议题，让小孩子、让学生更了解说我们活在这个世界真实的样子，不再只是 简单的问候。对，所以今天谢谢五位学者，就是给我很多启示。那我也可以透过你们所做的一些影片，那因为小朋友自己不会去看那些影片，那我们是基层的教师，可以透过这些影片来辅助孩子们去欣赏去了解现在的世界的议题。对，谢谢。
There is just a point I'll make about education, because one of the things that my department is involved in is producing materials for teaching French to foreigners. Time's up, yes, okay. I'll just make the point and then I'll say goodbye. What we do is similar to what you're saying, not just say, hello, how are you, would you like a cup of tea, the exit's there, time's up. But you can also say, you can build the class and the study around events that touch people and affect people's lives. One of the things we're working on right now is how to teach French to people who have landed in the country, but they didn't want to be there. But they find themselves as migrants from war in a position where they have to learn the language. They didn't want to learn it, they're there, and we're providing courses based on their experience. And that's the only way you touch people. Thank you very much, everybody. Time's up.
Our mayor of Taoyuan City, the gateway of Taiwan, will be arriving in a few minutes. So everyone can just relax a little bit, and he should be here very soon. But it has been really inspiring to listen to all the people who have been sharing today about the projects here in the Asia-Pacific region. And I hope that we all have some great ideas that we can take home with us, use them in our own lives or in our work life, and that we can especially share in the media with the people that we talk to.
我们的桃园市市长郑文灿市长将于稍后莅临，请各位稍待。谢谢今天第3场活动领导对话人人永续的语坛人和主持人，让我们了解媒体如何领导公众讨论永续发展的议题。那下一场的活动是由我们台湾的门户，也就是刚才提到的郑文灿市长上台。郑市长将分享政府在永续议题上面面临哪些挑战，带领我们了解县市首长如何领导台湾成为更永续发展的国家。
under his leadership, the Taoyuan city government has been promoting a lot of green energy policies. So we have a lot to look forward to in hearing from Taoyuan City Mayor Zheng Wenchan. But before he arrives, we can take a breather and rest for a few minutes, and he should be here very soon.
在郑文灿市长的带领之下，桃园市政府大力推行绿色的能源，让桃园成为低碳排放的绿色城市。现在就让我们休息片刻，让我们期待郑市长会带给我们什么样的启发。
Okay, the Taoyuan City Mayor is on his way up into the room, so please be seated, and we'll be ready to give him a very warm welcome when he arrives.
郑市长即将在30秒之后进场，请各位尽速就座，谢谢。
So, Henry, you have been listening to this exciting forum on sustainability today and hearing all these stories from around the Asia Pacific. Have you learned anything?
刚才看到那个 National Geographic 它提供的这样子的一个影片，可以透过科技能降低那个 pixel， 就是画质，然后来帮助我们的地球更能够永续发展。我觉得是非常美好，而且是非常令人惊艳的事情哦。
So Henry was really impressed with what National Geographic is doing, reducing the number of pixels and the energy that we use when we watch TV in a new way, green definition. And is there anything that you've been doing in your life that to become more green?
其实我本人还蛮喜欢喝手摇饮料的。那以往我是会购买塑胶袋，但是现在呢，我都自备布制的手提袋。另外，我现在也减少使用瓶装水，而是自己带水瓶，因为我听说对瓶装水对环境其实是有很大的伤害。
So Henry has been using water bottles and environmental bags instead of plastic bags and plastic water bottles.
Yeah.
So that's a great way, and I've been using water bottles. Okay. And does anyone else want to share any ideas that they have for their personal lives and how they become more green, or any ideas that they've heard during the conference today? 有没有人想分享他们自己听到什么或学到什么关于怎么样让自己的生活更永续经营？
机会难得，请大家把握机会发言。
And now let's give a warm welcome to the mayor of Taoyuan City, Zheng Wenchan.
现在让我们热情欢迎郑文灿市长从城市的角度探讨永续议题。
We look forward to him giving us a city view on sustainability. 请市长上台。
谢谢。那个。央广平路董事长、邵立忠台长，各位贵宾，还有市政府参与的伙伴，大家午安，大家好。那我今天也是 要来报告一个这个环保价值的新思考。那么怎么样子在城市的层次来落实？那也呼应我们这个90周年台庆的亚太永续发展论坛的主题。那我来介绍一下桃园的经验。那么桃园是全台湾工业密度最高的城市，我们的环境负担比其他这个21个城市。OK， 来，好，那我这样过来。这样比较方便。OK。但是呢，如何的让这个永续发展的思维能够让桃园的这个工业发展能够达成一个新的高度？那我基本的思考是要把环境的负债转换成环境的这个资产。那我们在2017年，那桃园市政府的环保的表现，得到环保署这个10个奖项。好，在空气、河川、海洋、土壤，还有环境整洁、资源回收、环教，还有气候变迁跟绿色采购，还有整体的环保绩效，10项都拿到环保署评鉴的特优，或者是这个第1名，这个是很不容易的。那我就分这10项来跟大家报告。第一个是空污，目前是台湾的热门话题。那桃园作为台湾工业密度最高的城市，那事实上我们在空污的指标上，那么是不断的这个下降。那么空气品质不良的天数比例也在下降。那我们采用了很多的政策，例如桃园的锅炉很多原来是燃油或者燃煤，那我们鼓励把它换成燃天然气。那目前呢，我们已经大概有这个700个锅炉，我们大概换了100多个。那每个锅炉有补助，最高上限是到60万。但是呢，我们在这个协助他们取得天然气管线上，给予更大的协助。所以我们的桃园的工业很自然的在这个锅炉的这个转换上，愿意配合。那比如说我们在全台湾第一个实施这个空气盒子监测工业区是在关林工业区，那我们做了100个，那这个经过大数据分析以后，我们找出2个可疑的污染源，移送法办，那果然是确定的。那我们全市呢要再设置1000个，那我们甚至用这个无人自驾飞机呢去监测空污。那我们也做了一个环保的天罗地网，那么每一个稽查案件都必须要在这个3到4小时完成。那稽查人员到现场之前，他已经知道附近所有可能的污染源。这个是我们桃园的一个很大的特色，叫做这个环保天罗地网系统。连这个庙宇，我们都帮忙装置PM 2.5的侦测机，那鼓励庙宇做好空污，这个也是一个特点。那第2个是绿色运输，目前桃园的电动机车是全台湾登记数量最多，将近3万辆。那我们的清洁队、守望江助巡守队也都采用电动机车。我们的电动巴士目前已经到达58辆，那在运行中的也是全台湾最高。那我们在公车的使用率上，我们去年实施了8公里这个买1送1，就是50%折扣的政策。我们去年的成长是571万人次，是其他5个直辖市成长的总和的2倍。那么我们在这个推动这个 U-Bike 的这个政策上，那目前也这个非常成功。虽然我们是比较晚建制的，那目前使用率这个成长得非常的快速。那刚刚讲的这个2行程引擎的机车的淘汰，目前还有些县市它到达10几万、20几万辆，桃园已经在剩下5万多辆。我们整个淘汰的速度也是全台湾最快的。那我的补助款是比较多， 我让淘汰2行程机车转换成电动机车，我们可以补助到34000块。那2家主要的电动机车的大厂，一家是中华汽车 E-Moving， 另外一家是 Gogoro，2家都在桃园，所以我们在这个充电站的设置上也是最多的。好，绿色能源呢，我们现在推动太阳能光电的这个政策呢，我们曾经在农业博览会的基地，率先的推动了这个自给自足的这个 Green Village 的政策，那么能够让农博基地完全的透过太阳能发电跟这个风力发电，那自给自足使用。那我们最近也选择2个部落，一个在原乡，一个在客庄，那也分别做绿能示范社区，那完全要让它自给自足。那我们在公有房舍，包括这个工厂，包括垃圾掩埋场设置光电屋顶目前很成功。像我们的这个垃圾掩埋场几乎都这个设置这个富裕的掩埋场，设置太阳能光电。那桃园有特殊的地景，就是我们的埤塘有到达2800多口。我们现在示范的这个第1期的光电埤塘的示范区，那正在做环境检测。那如果在生态跟景观没有冲击的情况底下，我们会继续推动。那像我们的环保科技园区，我们的园区厂商24家100%设置光电屋顶。我想这个我们在这个每一年我们的这个设置光电屋顶的补助案，这也是全台湾最多。我们1年补助大概2500万，那让这个民间部门来设置光电屋顶。那目前的风力发电在桃园在这个陆域的部分58座，那应该算桃园跟这个彰化最多。那在离岸的话，我们是进度比较快。我们离岸风力发电第一个并网的会是在桃园，但风场最多是在彰化的外海最多。那我们有提出了一个自治条例，这个用电这个大户必须要购买10%的绿电或设置10%绿电。那用电大户的定义是500万5000瓦，但是我们这个标准也可能会降低。这个因为我们桃园的工厂真的是很多，11000家。那我们会把这个用电大户纳入使用绿电的范围。好，第4个是有关河川河川我们下水道的接管率从升格前非常的落后，大概只有5%，现在我们接管率已经到达大概15%左右。那我们增加了大概8万户，我们预定到达在6年会到达60%的目标，就是要增加大概30万户。那我们在下水道的建设光速的前进。那在河川的整治桃园也是大幅的进步。那我们的主要河川不只是污染管制，我们也做了很多清水设施，那也改善了这个防灾的能力也大幅的提高。那我们也做了很多的像砾间带的系统或人工湿地的系统，让这个我们的河川水质恢复它原来的这个包括它原来的生态。河川部分我再补充一点，我们桃园是整个全台湾印刷电路板的故乡，有250家。那么这个可以讲最新的，比如说 iPhone 最新的板子一定是在桃园做。那我们为了要让印刷电路板朝向绿色生产，我们推动了总量管制。那么假设要扩厂，必须要减量。那新的厂不准设立。那这个在整个污染管制上是采取非常严格的做法，所以我们的铜离子的污染的程度也大幅的降低。当然有些农地仍然有污染，我们正在进行复育，所以我们在河川污染的管制上这个总量管制的政策也产生很大的效果。好，海岸生态的保护，我们成立了第1个海岸管理处。那地方政府很少成立这样的这个组织。那我们也通过了海岸政策的白皮书，针对敏感的生态地带进行各种复育计划，包括呢许厝港国家湿地，这个湿地是台湾最大的这个候鸟的乐园，那么有970几公顷。 好比那个这个台中的高美湿地，哦新竹的香川湿地哦都来得大。那现在正在进行复育工作。那像草踏沙丘，这是很特别的这个海岸沙漠的地形。那这个也是我们一个特殊的，因为东北季风跟这个洋流的造成的一个地形。那像关心藻礁，大家炒得很热门的，我们在大潭电厂以南的藻礁区呢，有将近400多公顷被纳为保护区。那这里的保护程度非常高，我们单单执行这个污染管制，总罚款就超过台币这个2亿多，勒令停工的工厂将近20家，所以我们在这个整个关心藻礁的这个复育工作上，应该是我们甚至组成巡护队，所以这里复育的情况应该是非常良好。那新屋石户是台湾本岛这个传统的渔业文化的遗址，那我们也把它保留下来。目前只有澎湖跟桃园有这个遗址，所以我们海岸线大概46公里。我们做了很多生态的这种新的保护措施哦，有一个专责单位在做。好，桃园曾经是土壤污染、地下水污染的很严重的地方，我们曾经发生过这个中福化工的镉污染，这个发生过高银化工的镉污染，也发生过 RCA 的地下水的污染事件。我们把这个管制的场址呢，我们在分年分阶段，用刻土的方式，让这个污染这个让农地复育。我们已经复育完大概130公顷，我们预定在3年内完成所有的这个污染农地的复育。那这个部分我们花了很多的力气，甚至我们的这个检测仪器也都是移动式的，可以随时检测，随时判定土壤污染的各种成分。那么资源回收，这个也是我们的一个重点。我们桃园有300家这个环保厂商，我们在资源回收的效率在大幅提升。那我们的资源回收不只是做到这个产业的资源回收，工业生产的这个废弃物这个再生利用，这个部分的生态循环，我们家庭式的也做很多资源回收，包括我们的这个资源回收站是落实到里的层次，而且我们这个资源回收站可以让这个每个里办公室分享回收的这个资源，那他可以得到费用啊，所以这个他们很乐于帮忙做回收，所以回收率越来越高。那我们也在这个桃园成立第一个生质能中心，这个生质能中心呢，可以把这个污泥，把这个生质能含量高的垃圾，把它做厌氧消化，那可以做发电使用。那这个案子已经招标了，那已经即将在建置台湾第一个比较大型的生质能中心。那社会参与的部分，环保这个概念事实上是需要更多的志工。那我们单这个每个里，我都要求成立环保志工队，这个环保志工高达31000人，所以我们的这个整个城市的街道景观也大幅的改善。那特别是台风，台风过后不可能只有靠清洁队，我们靠大量的环保志工，把桃园的这个复原速度加快。另外，我们有一个特点，就是我们成立的这个水环境巡守队。那这个巡守队呢，目前认养河川的比例已经到达75%了，我们要到达100%做目标。另外呢，我们也成立了海岸巡守队。我们现在有海岸巡守队有分2部分。第一部分，我们的渔船去捞那个海漂垃圾。我们1年净滩大概300场。那么渔船有些时候没有捕鱼，非捕鱼的非渔季的时代我们就去捞那些海上的垃圾。哇，这个捞很多。我们2个渔港呢，这个负责帮我们捞这个海洋废弃物，这个整个那个海洋塑胶垃圾真的很多。大家不要怀疑，垃圾不一定台湾制造的，很多简体字的垃圾。所以这个，那另外呢，我们也决定海岸巡守队。目前河川已经到75%，那我们也成立海岸管理处，所以我们也成立了海岸的这个巡守队。这个目前正在建制。好， 我们因为桃园的产业多，我们鼓励产业的绿色采购。那当然我们也成立社区的这个低碳社区的示范区，全市都在推动这个，比如说水资源回收，我们所谓的水铺满，好鼓励这个屋顶的绿化，鼓励废置空间的绿美化等等，这全市都在做这个低碳社区的竞赛啊。绿色采购这个当然我们的各大卖场都要配合我们的绿色采购的精神每隔一段时间要推出绿色采购的这个活动，所以桃园在这个低碳城市方面有很多创新的做法可以参考。那我们呢？我们跟几个银行合作，凡是要推动绿能，包括储能设备，包括这个相关的这个绿能投资。那我们总共先跟3家银行签了合约，它提供650亿的那个额度，给这些企业。所以我们台湾在绿能的金融支持上也非常的彻底。那当然我们自己的公共建筑物也采取绿建筑、智慧建筑。我们自己盖的社会住宅速度最快，台湾的社宅桃园算是规划快的。我们12000户社宅，我们选择其中一部分呢，来采取低碳设计。那最近我们也在检讨学校建筑应该朝向低碳设计，而不是只有装冷气。这个绿能设计可以防止西晒的教室太多，可以让学校多一点通风，所以这个部分也在做检讨。环教扎根，这是我一个新的政策。我们特别成立一个环境教育中心，专门把环境教育的场所盘点。那我们桃园呢？我们桃园有设置了一个环境教育馆，把我们的这个所有的资源回收、再生利用的厂商的成果，那这些厂商几乎都已经到达上柜上市公司的标准，甚至已经上柜上市。所以我们让市民了解到这个。我们叫做都市金矿，就垃圾变黄金。那我们环教认证的场所呢，一共有我们现在盘点了27个。那所以我们将来市民跟学生呢，可以到各式各样的环教场所去理解什么是环境教育，包括这个生态公园，包括农业博览会的基地，包括砾间处理系统，包括这个人工湿地。包括我们的这个休闲农业区，目前这个我们桃园的休闲农业区从升格前0到现在已经8个休闲农业区，超过100家休闲农场，这个也是桃园在整个农村生态的一个这个改造方面大规模的进步。好，这10个指标呢，这个是我当4年在环境方面这个很重要的施政的政策那我们的环保署他说桃园是工业的 GDP 连续15年全国第1名，我们的工业产值到达3兆新台币。那竹科是半导体产值高，1年也超过1.2兆台币。那桃园3兆，而且我们还在成长。那因此我们在环境的投入要更多，所以我是把循环经济当作是我们的政策目标。一般所谓的这个循环经济有2个意思，一个是工业的循环，可以让这个资源再生利用；另外一个是生态的循环。那城市跟乡村也要让环境产生自己的这个生命力。那所以除了工业的循环以外，我还蛮注重生态的循环。所以桃园在这一方面去年会交出一个比较好的成绩呢，也代表我们台湾的中央跟地方政府在永续发展的指标上正在往前走。那当然我希望未来有更多的 IoT 的这个科技可以协助我们在这个环境的工作上做得更多，这些经验可以提供给各城市参考。我们在 ICF 国际智慧城市论坛的评比，我们已经连续2年得到 Top 7。那里面的指标包括我们的这个防灾系统，包括我们的环境的这个监测系统，也是得奖的项目。所以我们未来应该还会配合上这些计划往前走。那这些经验呢，希望我们台湾在永续发展城市的这些经验上可以互相交流。好，谢谢大家，谢谢。
Thank you, Mayor Tai. We would like to take a picture with you with the General Manager and Chairwoman of RTI and AIB CEO Simon Spanswick. Please come on stage to take a picture with our Green Mayor here, Mayor of Taoyuan City. Thank you very much, Mayor Zhen, for coming and sharing all that you're doing for the city of Taoyuan.
谢谢郑市长，让大家了解您如何带领桃园市迈向永续。
And we're going to be taking a 20-minute break and beginning our last session at 4:35. That will be concluding session with all of the chairs of our panels today and our two co-hosts, AIB CEO Simon Spanswick and RTI Chairwoman Ping Lu.
接下来是茶叙时间，我们为各位嘉宾准备了精美的茶点，在您的左侧房间。下一节活动将于4点35分开始，敬请各位准时入座。我们休息20分钟时间。
In the Pacific Ocean, there is so much plastic, an area the size of France has formed. Governments have simply ignored it. So we found a way to ensure they couldn't, by turning the country-sized trash patch into an official country.
Les trash isles.
Pour trash isles.
À la isla de plástico.
Des îles poubelles, comme on dit.
The trash isles
Introducing the Trash Isles. On World Oceans Day, the Plastic Oceans Foundation and LADBIBE submitted an application to the United Nations to recognise the Trash Isles as an official country, because under the laws of the UN, other countries are then obliged to clean it up.
Declared the part of the ocean where all the trash is gathered, the plastic, the trash isles. Has the petition been received, and what's your take on it?
I think it's a very innovative and creative way to bring attention to a problem that is often not seen.
Having met the criteria to become a country, the Trash Isles began recruiting citizens online. In the first few weeks, we had more citizens than some countries. The Trash Isles had everything an official country needs: a currency called debris, a passport for new citizens, and a national flag. We even had big-name celebrities signing up.
I think this is the first honorary citizenship I've had from any emerging nation.
Thank you very much.
Trash Isles citizenship.
Trash Isles. Trash Isles.
Some even took on official roles.
I'm Judi Dench, the Trash Isles Queen.
I will be the best Secretary of your Defense that I can.
With over 200,000 citizens, 50 million video views, and 500 million people reached, the Trash Isles put the plastic problem firmly on the map.
I will make reference to the Trash Isles from here on out.
Binaka. Kumbula binaka. Ela go go sem tama. O sai pa gwit so bul ko rua. O su tu ga bai mode. Melau. Isuba. Betawa na to kay chiku ina chinika vindu mo. Ito ko la dula ko ale le me ra na tanga ni bul ko se kato. Kato mo bichi. Jadi kuah, sa plastik wala nga. Kita lang ko ni sakit lang na store, sakit ako to. Uli so sa taka mo plastik. Ulo ya tarong nga siya tawa man. Kita pa lagi na plastik. Plastik siya tawa, tapos suji patata na ika. Siya ro ko to na kadi ko itu.
The plastic that we release to the environment due to wave action in the sun will break in tiny pieces that then the aquatic organisms like fish and clams and crabs will eat. What is the problem with that tiny plastic? Plastic has chemicals that are harmful to our health that can accumulate in the aquatic organisms. To the fish itself, they can get clotted and stop eating. They will have that feeling that, okay, I'm full, I've eaten a lot, and I'm full of plastics, and plastics has no nutrients. So the fish will start to get thinner and weaker and can get sicker. In the case of bivalves, clams, for instance, we eat the whole organism. So the plastic or microplastics that are inside of that organism, we will be eating them straight away. So we release the plastic is broken down, and in the end we are eating the plastic and all the chemicals that are in those plastics.
Ni kaya na rin itubo na ito. Iya gitu mo talaga. O ito yung maru gitu gawa gitu maru.
for our closing session, looking ahead, collaboration for good, I'd like to invite our co-host, AIB CEO Simon Spanswick, to come on stage to introduce the next session.
欢迎来到今天最后一场活动，展望未来，永续合作。让我们欢迎国际广播协会执行长 Simon Spanswick 上台。
Thank you very much. I'm afraid it's me again for the last session. I apologise for an over preponderance of me at this show, but I've been stitched up, basically. That's an English phrase. I hope the translators can work with stitched up. Now, if you remember back to the opening session this morning and the introduction that I gave about the aims and aspirations for ASAP 90, you'll remember I said that a measure of our success would be if people were inspired today, if they learnt new things, if they took things away to continue conversations in the future. And I hope that's happened. And I've heard one or two encouraging noises, both from panelists and from delegates, that they have learnt things already today, which is great. And I hope that in this wrap-up session, we'll do some more. This session is going to bring together the chairs of the day, plus an independent observer who has been sitting, taking notes and thinking very hard during the course of the day. But I think what we ought to do first of all is just remind ourselves, because we've been talking about the SDGs, remind ourselves how diverse the public's opinions can be about sustainability in our final Vox Pop.
Well, we have adult children, they're grown up, have their own families, but I think that they are probably more conscious in their daily lives of sustainability than perhaps myself and my wife are. But having said that, my wife and I are very sort of keenly aware of the need to live sustainably and have others do it as well. But again, as I said, in a practical way.
可持续性发展，其实我不太关注的不是很多，因为国家就在提这个口号嘛。因为国家就是像我们国家这边就之前一直在很注重经济的发展，然后就很忽略了环境的保护，然后所以说就很早可能就把这个国家的政策转向就是倾向于保护一下环境，就是然后在发展经济的同时可能就保护一下环境。其实我了解的不是很多，没有关注很多这种东西。
ယနေ့ခေတ်လိုအပ်ချက်တွေအတွက်နောက်လာမယ့်မျိုးဆက်တွေကထိခိုက်သွားတာမျိုးမရှိအောင်လုပ်ရမယ်အရာမျိုးကိုကျွန်တော် sustainable development ပေါ့နော်ရေရှည်စနစ်မပြတ်ဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်ရေးလို့ကျွန်တော်မှတ်ယူပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာ
So there we are, somebody wanting practical solutions, and it's the younger generation who are more aware. Another who isn't particularly aware, other than knowing his government was promoting the ideas of sustainability. And yet another looking to a better world for the future. So it shows that people on the streets across this region, and probably around the world from what we've heard talking about John's Bananas, is that sustainability really is a truly complex issue for us to come to grips with. Now, I think what we're going to do is have we haven't really practiced this, so anything could happen in the next half hour. Some of it may be good. We hope it'll all be good. I'm going to invite Ping to have a few words about what you think. Tell us about the aims, why you wanted to do this, and what we've achieved or have not achieved during the course of the day.
Okay. First, really honored to be here and to co-host with Simon of this gathering. And today, sometimes I cannot stay here for a long time, so sometimes I running around. But whenever I was here, each session has something very, very touching, talking about things it's really close to our life, and also it's so related with our media environment. And also it's some opinions are new visions, are new opinions. And so this is fantastic. And for us, I mean, okay, first talking about for me, I'm especially touched when some of the session and talking about issues like gender equality. Okay, it's being a female and being raised in, I will say, it's a very traditional family, and then join the media work. So I could see all this development or all this change. So I was really touched when talking and when here, when we say the media colleague, talking about what we should do, what we should even change the culture of the organization. So it's wonderful. For our organization, our Radio Taiwan International, I think it's also very, very touching and important, talking about maybe the time for abstract thinking is over. What we need to do within our organization or from our angle, try to spread those ideas. So that's very important. We need to do it, just do it. And also another thing, okay, the last thing is hearing the whole day very fresh ideas. I was sitting there thinking, maybe sometimes, especially in, what do we say, as some of the speakers talking about in Asia, sometimes we are more traditional societies. Sometimes it's very easy to, what do we say, moralizing those sustainability issues. Seems like it's easy, it's right way, wrong way, we should do, we shouldn't. What I feel, it's not moralizing. It's really the media's role, the media's responsibility to let people know the truth, know the reality, know that our Earth is really in some really desperate condition. It's really very crucial. So I feel more and more it's our media's responsibility, and not just usually it's easy to fall in the trap of the right way, the wrong way, the more educated way, or the anyway. That's something when I was sitting there, I feel from the bottom of my heart. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have to say that sitting on this panel, surrounded, John and I are rather outnumbered, which is quite unusual for most panels in most conferences in most parts of the world, and it's great to see. And one of the reasons is actually my colleague Anjali, who is going to give us a little overview of what's happened during the day, and then we'll pick the conversation up with each of the chairs. But I have to give Anjali a vote of thanks, because it's she who's come up with most of the research and finding the speakers for this event. She's been working hard over the last 6 months, so well done on that. But
so I'm not really independent, which is...
Yeah, well, you're almost independent. It says you're freelance there, so you must be independent.
It also says AIB.
Ah, right, that's the... Anyway, tell us what you've made of today.
So I really enjoyed today. Not that I'm biased at all. I think that it is unusual to have such a diverse lineup of speakers, not just in terms of gender or nationality or ethnicity, but in terms of academic and professional backgrounds and fields of interest. And sustainability is such a broad field, is probably the wrong word for it, but in terms of the remit that the UN has given everyone, sustainability covers pretty much anything with a moral grounding that you could think of. So a number of themes emerged, I think, throughout the day, and one of the significant ones that came up fairly early on and then developed was whether the media can be impartial, or whether you can be an activist, whether you can believe in something, act on an imperative, a moral imperative, and report on it ethically. So there were lots of different views on this, and that's part of what makes the media so important, not just historically, but particularly in today's modern age, where you have, as Susan said, lots and lots of different opinions and viewpoints coming up on the internet, some of them unsubstantiated, some of them with a basis in fact. And what I liked about today, or one of the things that I think was most significant, was that you had agreement with one of my personal views, which is that everybody has beliefs, everyone has biases, and it's never ever going to be possible to eradicate those. And so it's never going to be possible to have journalism that is neutral in a way that doesn't have an effect, because everything is within context. If you are an activist, you obviously hold certain beliefs that are usually ethically based. And as Masato said, the key thing is to be transparent about them. You come up on stage and you say, actually, I'm not independent. I helped coordinate this conference. But this is what I think. And similarly, if you're writing an article or you're appearing in a video about sustainability issues, I believe journalists don't have an obligation to portray everything as equally significant. Instead, as it's come out, what is important is that they portray the things that matter to the people and the planet that we exist in at the moment and in the future. So there were a lot of different things that came out of each session. The first one, Philippa, your session was really interesting in terms of setting the tone for the day, not just because the panel was all women and all from different parts of Asia Pacific, but because what it highlighted was that you have marginalized people who have finally been given a voice by new media, and how old media can start responding to this. So I made some notes. Claire talked about navigating the complexities of coming into a country and dealing with different cultures and different needs and wants from the people who are indigenous or who are local. And Larissa talked about her experience as someone who is marginalized within her own country and is in a minority. And this idea of loss of land, of agency and autonomy, and what the media can do about that. And more than anything else, I think what is important is to amplify voices for people who didn't necessarily have that ability before. And that's what new media is doing. Not for everyone, and you still get trolls, and a lot of the trolls are people with time to fight about issues that come naturally to us because we're all at a sustainability conference. And you would be amazed, I found that today, when we're not debating whether or not climate change exists because you get on a stage and everyone here admits that it's real, you save a lot of time and energy, and you can start talking about what the solutions might be and what people can practically do to deal with those kinds of issues. On the internet, on social media forums and comment threads, you can't do that because you're too busy debating someone without a face, talking, or more dangerously, debating someone who has massive followings and who might be able to convince people by appealing to them on an emotional level, rather than basing what they're saying in fact. And that leads to another really important theme of the day, which was, again, Masato's emotion versus logic. Like I said, you can't remove emotion from things. I came to this conference, I got involved because I care about the media, I care about sustainability issues, I care about not just people, but about the environment and the future, even after I'm gone. Although I maintain that that might never happen, given the rate of technological advancement. What is what was memorable, most memorable about John's earlier panel, the banana story, the idea that you can have, you can try every day to create one small change, and you're going to experience blowback on that every single day, is you can extrapolate from that, and it's relevant to everything. The media, and in terms of that difficult question I posed earlier, sorry guys, about self-policing, you can try and change something, and it's not necessarily going to be, it's never going to be easy. And there are two sides to that. One is the easy way is not always the right way, and it's not always the wrong way either. But at the moment, there are a number of things that are difficult and morally correct according to the liberal system that we live in, as you said earlier, Simon. But they aren't going to return any reward for a long time. And maybe not within our lifetime. So the idea that we had, that I think it was Minister Lee who talked about Taiwan, and also Mayor Cheng when he talked about Taiwan as doing all of these things to develop in a sustainable way. And actually Dr. Shi said it the best when he said Taiwan is doing all of these amazing things, and realistically, you know, as an observer state, isn't getting the recognition that it deserves in a time when states that have made this commitment publicly are pulling out of those commitments. The media, similarly, at the moment, because it doesn't have a structure to self-police, because it doesn't have that.
那这其实就跟媒体一样，很多时候我们是个观察者，我们并不能真正的参入其中，我们并不是这个故事里面的一份子，我们只能用观察的方式呢，提出我们的一些所见。那我觉得在这时候的确就会有一些道德上的一些冲击，譬如说，如果在产业界呢，我们可能产业界、商业界为了种种利益关系，他们可能决定要选择了某一条路。而这时候，就算不是大家都同意，那记者是不是还要继续的去追查他心中所相信的正义或他的真理？然后在这时候可能是得不到任何回报的。所以或是像你可能写了一篇报告，结果被网络上的一些乡民所就是被他们所鄙弃，或者被他们酸，或被他们攻坚，那这些。我们就会发现这些有很多的。是的，我要先跟您打断一下，因为今天我们讨论的是想要看看媒体在这个永续发展上面的一些分享。那刚才你也提到几点，譬如说像媒体的参与程度应该是什么呢？还有一些少数民族或是被边缘化的族群，他们该怎么进行呢？我觉得你提到了非常多点，都非常值得思考。那我想要问 Jane 的就是，在你的那一组里面，当然是那个论坛里面，我记得好像有 SBA， 还有 BBC， 然后。但是我很多年前参加的时候，当时我记得我们就有提过，记得那时候就被教导不要用我们的优越感或我们的一些傲慢与偏见来看待这些新闻的内容。但其实像这样子的一些判定，其实它也影响了我们后续的一些，也带来了很多问题跟冲击。所以我想知道的是说，我们要怎么样去新媒体，在这些新媒体里面，我们如何要厘清种种的资讯来源，然后呢，来找到一个我们可以信任的讯息来源。
我想我们还在努力尝试当中，如何过滤各种不同的讯息，找到真正可靠的讯息。在各个不同国家，像是菲律宾、印尼，有电视上有各式各样的节目，而且也有很多人使用社群网络。那社群网络的使用当然也有它的效益，也有它正面的影响，比如说扩大菲律宾、印尼人民网络的使用，它也带来机会的。可是，在另一面呢，我想没有人预期到 其实它的负面效果也很大。我想没有任何人有做好这个准备，没有想到开放网络使用这些社群媒体，其实也有影响。其实假新闻过去以来，它一直都存在，以前是宣传、文宣等等，所以我想我们现在还在努力的尝试。要怎么样才能够过滤消息？我想 Facebook 还有 Twitter 等这些平台，他们都在努力。我想，虽然当然这个改变还不够快。Facebook、Twitter 这些公司，还有 Google， 他们必须要加快脚步，要应对，并且支持好的新闻业者，因为在外面还是有很好的新闻业者。我想，当脸书或者是推特，他们能够有更好的合作，我们就可以看到有所进展。比如说 Google 的新闻实验室等等，我想这些都会有所帮助大众怎么样找到可靠、正确以及高水准、高质的新闻。那我想，一旦这些大企业像 Google 开始这样子做呢，我想他们就可以开始引导其他的人，或者是引导读者甚至是付费来获得这样子可靠的消息来源。那接下来 Philippa， 我想要请教刚刚的 Masato 教授，他提到像社群媒体、社群网络Facebook 按赞或者是评论或者是分享，其实它会它的这些数据有时候不太准确。你的工作的经历是市场是比较富裕而且比较发达的，那就您个人的经验呢？你在你的纽西兰的媒体公司，是不是现在越来越注重社群媒体的这些产生的数据？那你觉得你的老板他们是否理解日本教授的观点？我想这里的问题是我们必须要划清所有的界限。我稍早我们在现在这个时代，人们开始转向其他的媒体获得资讯。我想信任是关键，新闻记者必须要能够让民众信服，能够相信，而且能够从新闻业者获得可靠的消息来源。我们刚刚在今天的讨论也提到了，其实人们在经济发展以及永续议题的关注上之间的平衡。我认为分析的数据还是在，不能忽略。以纽西兰我们的业者来说，我们有一个产业的原则需要符合，我们有一个大概的目标方向。我想定出这样明确的方向是很好的。我们不能够忽略世界的潮流发展。我们还是要顾虑到一般大众阅听者的感受，才能够继续存活下去。您刚刚提到了这个纽西兰的媒体业者的一种大宪章。我觉得很有意思，这种媒体业者自己定出一个大宪章来自我规律，我觉得这是很有意思的一个做法。这是不是需要 考虑的一点，其实，在网络上任何人可以发表任何的言论，但是媒体业者像 Radio 纽西兰的广播业者，他们有一个大宪章，要符合他们的一些原则。我想，我们大家都有不同的看法。我个人的看法呢，是我们觉得。我觉得新闻业者认为他们会自称记者，但他们其实报道的都是在发表他们个人的意见，他们是一些倡议者。所以我觉得我们应该要定义出好的新闻是什么。有时候在一些场合，我看到有一些非政府组织，他们可以参与一些活动，以记者的名义参与，但是我发现有一些真正记者他们没有办法参与，所以我认为这也是我们也要好好的界定清楚的，我们要界定出我们的新闻的来源，并且确保新闻的来源是好的。刚刚稍早 Susan 也有提到，像置入性行销等，任何一种沟通跟大众沟通的方法都是好的，只要是可靠可信的沟通方式。接下来 John， 你在全世界各地都有工作过，像是非洲的你也待过。非洲的手机的使用普及率，其实大大的打扰了资讯的流通。以前在非洲都是主要的广播业者主导资讯的传播，那么在非洲，现在人可以获得好的或者是不好的资讯，他一下子获得这么大量的资讯，有什么样的冲击，有什么样的影响呢？我认为呢，首先我觉得我们不能够就是这么单一的面向来看非洲。非洲大陆其实包含许多的国家，各个国家都有不同的特色。那如果只看几个国家的话，比如说奈及利亚人，他们以前是一个威权统治的国家，经历了长时间的威权统治。国家的媒体我也非常熟悉，我和奈及利亚的政府、奈及利亚的国家媒体一起合作。以前他们的威权统治在最高峰的时候，我就在那个地方。非洲的科技发展，或者是在奈及利亚的科技发展，一直是跳跃式的发展。他们有时候会直接跳过一大步，然后进行到使用最新的科技。目前在奈及利亚的科技的普及率很高。那我想是有一些正面的影响的。奈及利亚的国家媒体现在不是没有这么的市占率没有这么的高了，我觉得是有一点开放奈及利亚的媒体的开放程度，但是很多像是在奈及利亚新闻媒体的业主这些老板，他们其实有个人的私人利益要考虑。像加纳，它是一个非常开放的国家，我想加纳是非洲大陆的一个民主国家的一个灯塔。那当然也有像索马利亚这样子的国家，发展比较没有那么的先进。北非当然又是一个很广泛的国家，不过我想要回答，整体来说它是一个正面的发展。我想更多的科技会让人们有更多的选择，更多的选择都是好的。非洲的国家。拥有好的媒体的非洲国家，他们都有很好的一些监督单位，还有鼓励好的新闻的做法。不过，我觉得鼓励好的新闻业者是一个全球的议题，不只是发展中国家要关注的议题。新闻记者，我觉得他们最大的敌人就是自己，因为我觉得现在的新闻记者越来越草率。我在我自己的公司或者是在年轻 一代他们有一点懒散，他们很自满于在电脑荧幕上面就是报道。以前我的工作量是很大的，我必须要非常努力才能够进到新闻报道。是，以前我们还有审查制度，其实现在的人不太了解，现在新闻报道不太理解到审查制度，现在的人不太了解这个问题。以前的报道的时候，还要顾虑到政府的一些审查，要过滤我们的报道，这是一个在那时候的报道环境是比较艰困的。我觉得现在社会，我觉得一方面也是因为培训的方式变得比较差。我觉得新闻业者、新闻记者必须要更努力，做调查性的报道，更认真一点。你提到培训的时候，我觉得很多的培训教育的组织，他们会结合公关以及新闻记者。如果你把公共关系结合新闻记者，有时候就会有一些利益的冲突。那在这个区域呢，我觉得公共关系还有新闻业的结合，业者新闻业者很多人他们工作量过多，他们会反而进到公共关系去工作。我觉得这是一个很有意思的讨论。新闻到底要怎么运作，而且推特上面的新闻算不算新闻？像是在孟加拉这样子的国家，你没有自由的媒体，那部落客他们就是独立的媒体，所以我们也要非常的小心翼翼，不要太严格的规定新闻的定义。我觉得这也是目前新闻业者的一个运动的一个议题。我们过去以来都有很明确的一些组织方法，但是有时候这种组织方法不适用于全世界，所以我们必须要重新的探讨跟我们的相关的组织，我们必须要重新的再考虑到底提倡新闻业者的权益，如果他们不是在一个固定的地方工作，如果他们是在全世界各地工作，我们要如何同样保护他们的权益？是不是他们？我想，像是在印度，我们也有看到透过 Facebook 来做新闻的报道。在脸书方面呢，我认为记者工作也是越来越困难，我有时候也必须要保护他们，我知道他们压力很大。我们在这个区每10天就会有一位新闻记者被死亡的，所以他们的生存也是一个重要的议题。我们必须要支持新闻记者，保护他们。如果他们确实有在改变他们的工作方式，我们也要支持他们。推特对我来说是一个新的头条撰写的方式而已，所以我觉得这也是，如果推特也可以以简洁的方式跟大众沟通的话，那当然也好，我们也必须要更有包容性，让新闻自由的发展。未来不会在传统的一些媒体管道上的发展，必须要包容不同的平台。我不知道我这样有没有回答到问题。
好的，我想这的确是很大的挑战。那我们想知道，像我们是不是要跟这个200 我们今
come
天聊
up
到
with
的就是
informative clickbait headlines.
是不是现在就要多一些那么不正式的标题、耸动的标题来吸引大家注意呢？是的，我其实也这个算是老人了，也在我可能没有200年，大概100年之久哦，所以在这个产业也非常的久了。那时候我看着这些新闻页，那当时我们还有那个报纸，其实是在这个石头上，然后我们的印刷上面呢，其实我也历经过那个年代，是跟现在完全不一样的。那我当时也是其中一个，其实是在我的报社里面。那当时我是第一个大学毕业生，因为一般的记者他们都在那个年代都不是大学毕业生，他们是可能从其他管道，所以当时我有非常多的冲击，然后也受到很多人的打访。那我想这样子的一个媒体产业或者说报社，它其实是在不断的变革当中往前推进的，这也是一个整个产业的生态应该继续往的方向。那即便它可能不是我所期待的，但它也有可能一直往前。那我也必须要因此的设身处地的去做一些因应的这个调整。是的，那您的这部分有没有想跟大家分享一下？我想要分享一下，我也是大学毕业生，但我之前曾经有过学生的学报，都是我上过的4个学校、3个大学里面呢，我都有就是做校刊。那其中一个我还曾任总编。那也因为虽然我不是念新闻系的，但是因为这样子我就有不同的角度可以切入，然后就会也可能因为没有受这所谓科班的教育，所以在很多时候我会有我自己的这个角度或我自己认为重要的这些价值观投入在其中。那我发现就是有很多我的同仁们呢，就算是一个国家级的这样的一个机构，我都发现他们其实并不是真正在做记者做的事情。像我如果阅读了一篇可能是跟这个政策或者是武器相关的这样子的文字呢，那当时我就那之前我记得我的总编也希望我可以再写一篇比较有趣的内容，因为他就说，因为他说，因为我的名字不是那么好发音，而且他们就说我也不是这么的知名，所以他们希望我写一些比较轻松一点的。那我当时就写了一篇，就说为什么其中有一篇有一个儿童节目呢受到西方的一个这个政治的渲染跟这个漂白了之后，他可能就是内容变得有点偏颇。那当时呢，我就记得有人回复了，那其他的新闻呢？他们觉得可能是不是这是一个被他们觉得我是不是被侵入了？那他们就说，我们读了你读的，那我也，那因此我设立一个推特的这个账户，然后呢，那当时他们就有做了一个这个儿童节目的这个照片当他的这个账号的照片，然后呢，他们就得到了他们的一些回应之后呢，我就把它放在这个，那这里面我也努力的想办法平反啊等等，但我就发现说像这样子的过程当中，因为很多人呢来批评了这篇文章，所以其实非常难的为自己平反或是去证实，尤其是如果你想要缓过，尤其当这上面如果说有非常多的酸民、非常多的乡民，其实我们很难去判断这些照片的背后是不是真的就是这个组织或者所代表的主张是不是真的就是我们想象的那样。那这也是因为这整个环境所塑造起来的。在过去，当时媒体是非常受到尊重的，但因为现在的声音非常的多元、非常的多面，所以呢，当然就会冲淡了像这样子的尊重或者这样子的角度，所以这也是为什么我今天来到这边，因为我觉得很重要的是，不管是记者或者是儿童节目的制作者，当你需要，尤其是你要对这么年轻的一群听众、观众呢有所影响力，那所以在这里面如果没有任何的一些核心价值或是比较好的一个 中心思想的话，很有可能你所做出来的一些宣传或主张，其实会影响非常大。那我觉得关键就是在于你怎么样看重你自己，你把自己当成怎么样的一个资讯的来源，你把自己当成怎么样的人，你怎么样去传达你的信念，还有为什么你的文章本身内容，你可能对某一些观点你是提出反向的意见的。那第二，我觉得是很重要，是把自己所写的东西要对自己有一定的要求跟标准。即便说有可能，因此你得要学更多、吸收更多，不然的话，你该怎么样知道自己？你怎么知道自己做得好呢？总是你怎么知道自己做的内容对人性是有益处的呢？那我想很重要的是要心心念念的提醒自己要成为更好的人，然后把自己放一个比较高的标准上，因为在某些很有可能是我想要插入一个部分，因为像当我们在讨论这个可信度的时候呢，记者的可信度有可能是来自于你的这个机构，你从哪里来，或是有时候看到这个机构，可能大家就打了一个勾，觉得这个消息来源应该是正确的。那在很多国家的话呢，这可能就是跟国家级的这些新闻机构有关。这可能要看每个国家这样子可信度的能够相信到什么程度的来源，这个其实是要看到机构组织。那如果你是一个非常自由的，还是说你可能这个媒体本身、媒体机构本身是为某个党派或者是组织所拥有等等，譬如说像在印尼来说，那可能你也没办法随时加入你想要的这个记者组织，你必须要受到其他这个组织里面其他2个人的推荐，你才能够加入这样子的一个记者组织。那它甚至就像一个会员卡一样，它是有一个制度的，让大家去申请成为这个，让记者们去申请成为这个会员。所以其实其实很多记者的协会最后其实就是记者工会的这个概念了，所以这是其中一个举例。所以拿到你的这个国际记者联盟的这个卡，或许对某些人就是一种公信力的证实。是的，我现在其实我不想要聊太多，说是因为有一些新的媒体，所以我们很多记者必须牺牲或是改变我们的方式。其实我想提的是说，因为我们现在是来到了一个很有可能会有水门事件再度发生的一个这个时机点。为什么呢？我不知道。如果这个是在尼克森年代，我们可能早就在历经水门事件了。是的，没错，我觉得这个观点非常的值得讨论了。那我待会就想要开放，让大家可以跟大家一起互动交流，也希望听众可以多给我们一些意见，或是给我们一些提问。那回到今天的这个总结呢，其实当我们在聊到这个媒体以及这个言论自由的时候呢，那请问媒体我们该怎么自处呢？我觉得这很多的部分就是要回到我们的个人的话，如果是在很多制作公司，像我们刚才讲的 Albert 这个的，我们就必须要去相信，像这样子的行动，它其实是会有所影响、有所改变的。这些利他主义我们在执行当中，我们有什么样的信念？那我们也相信呢，像 Albert 这样子的计划，它也是可以从一个某个执行面，它可以有根据不同的过程当中可以有些演变。那可能也跟我们的论坛，或是我们论坛后面的这个动机有关，因为我们相信像这些想法之后就会变成一些行动，可以付诸行动。好的，那我们聊到了这个 Albert， 因为我们知道 BBC 它当时呢，它有就是提出了这样子的一些标准，那它也把这个我想这样子的想法应该就是来自很多年前 BBC 的一个想法。好的，我们今天的时间呢有点不够了，因为我们想要问一下大家有没有很想要觉得迫不及待想跟大家询问的问题，请不要害羞，因为我们 今天就是大家就是一个友善的环境，欢迎大家提问。是的，我们这边有一个问题。好，我们请提麦克风给他。
Tell everybody who you are as well.
也跟我们自我介绍一下。
I'm from Radio Taiwan International.
大家你好，我是来自中央广播电台，我是 Carson。我没有我的问题可能不是给每一位哦，但是我今天其实印象非常的深刻，因为每一个论坛我听到的时候，我今天也跟 Anjali 说，我虽然没有时间听到每一场的每一个部分完整听完，但是我大概每一场我都会花点时间出去做别的事，但是呢，每一场我尽量可以的，我在现场听到我都非常的感动，也非常印象深刻。首先，像是 Jane 聊到了可能跟这个我们的媒体人的摄入以及这个平衡，还有 Anjali 她在讨论说，是不是一个媒体人他自己本身也可以是一个这些议题的这个积极分子等等的。但我觉得，如果你本身是一个积极分子，有没有机会成为媒体人呢？我想这也是很值得思考的，因为那就算是像您刚才提到的说，只是去像他给的例子哦，就是这个塑胶袋哦，他每次去这个蔬果市场购买的时候呢，不断的就会收到塑胶袋。那我们就发现，其实在这个社会当中呢，即便是小小的这样的动作，其实都会有所影响，而且这就是我的今天听到，就是我们在法国可能会遇到的事情。那还有像在这个性别议题，还有在这个原住民族他们的一些权益上面，然后让我们了解了，虽然是提的举例是在澳洲，但其实在台湾呢，我们的原住民族也有同样这样的权益抗争议题。所以那我相信在这个。虽然在性别上面可能台湾已经有一些进展了，但我们还是有很多东西需要做的。那同时我也听到了这个，我们看到
high definition versus sanitary napkins that could, have the impact on sustainability. So these are all the lessons that I've been learning the whole day, which I thank you very much, and I hope that I will have a chance to listen to all of you. Great scholars and media people from different parts of the world. My thanks to all of you.
I think that it demonstrates just the range, the sheer breadth and depth of topics that we've covered during the course of the day. I'd like to give Ping the final say. What has today meant for you and for RTI? Where do you go from here?
Well, it meant a lot for RTI, and we will try to do our utmost, trying to really put everything from daily life to some content we made. Okay, probably we still need to learning ourselves, but we will do it cordially. Okay, one last question I really want to ask. Have to. I know we don't have time, but I want to ask. Is that right? Or ask you people, or ask for the floor for everybody to think over. Good journalism probably needs a forum talking about whether it can sustainable, whether it will die down another 20 years. Only the phrase, good journalism, or even broader sense, journalist, another 20 years, whether it's become an ancient word or something else. So that's another sustainable issue, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, thank you to everybody that's been involved as chairs of panels and the panelists as well. Thank you for travelling here, and thank you very much to RTI.
And thank you very much, Simon, for partnering with us and for making today possible. It is a wonderful forum. It gives us a lot to think about. I hope that we continue the conversations and ideas about sustainability in our lives and in our work. And thank you so much for being with us on celebrating our 90th anniversary. RTI is very happy to have you here as well.
感谢活动主办单位央广的陆平董事长，以及 AIB 的 Simon Spankswick 执行长，还有台上的贵宾。今天的地球倒数媒体发声亚太永续发展国际论坛顺利圆满结束，非常感谢各位的莅临。
Thank you very much.